Good evening, everyone.
Good evening, Mayor.
I don't see Councilmember Rarey. Has anyone heard if she's been delayed or? There she is. I love it that big smile pops up there. It's just immediately.
Oh yeah, I was just the last person for her to add, so I'm here.
Wonderful. It's good to see all of you. Well, it is 5:30, so pursuant to Section 54956 of the California Government Code, a special meeting of the City Council is hereby called for February 8th, 2022 at 5:30 p.m. And we do have a quorum, so if Margaret, if you could give us a roll call, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer?
Here.
Councilmember Rarey?
Here.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Here.
Mayor Bryant?
Here. We do have a quorum, so at this time we will open public comments, and I'll turn it to you, Margaret.
We just lost Vice Mayor Rodriguez's video.
Yeah, somebody's trying to call me. I'm on my phone.
Can you click decline? So yeah.
There we go. All right. Roll call, please.
Oh, I think we got roll call. I'll go ahead. Public comment?
I'm sorry. Public comment, yes.
That's okay. Okay. Immediately following the public comment portion of the agenda, the Zoom link will no longer be active to the general public, and the interviews will be streamed on the city's meeting streaming software located on the City Council agenda page. At this time, the public is permitted to address the City Council on items that are on the special meeting agenda. I received no written public comments on this item that were submitted prior to the meeting. If you wish to speak under public comment, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature, and I'll call upon your name if provided. And unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. While we encourage your comments, state law prevents the City Council from discussing items that are not on their meeting agenda, and if appropriate, staff will follow up on them. And I do have one hand raised. Two hands raised. I'll call on Rod, followed by Cinziana. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, thank you, Margaret. I'd like to talk a little bit about a couple of the applicants. The first off, I want to talk about Lars Sandberg. He's an excellent choice for this. He's the right type of person for this kind of public involvement that we want to get more of. He's somebody who is a professionally worked, or did work, still works, and basically came here to find a place to live, just like most of the rest of us. He's got excellent credentials. He's representative of the community. He has the same values and professionalism. He worked with us on No Rezone, and he's got great finance experience, and you can see all that in his application. And I know the man personally, and he's a very solid individual. He's somebody I would trust, and I think somebody that you could be proud to appoint to any position. Next up, I want to talk about Annette Beckstrand, and I'm not going to gush. I have to say Annette is the wrong person for anything to do with anything in this town. She should not be in any position in this city. She was the marketing director for the Yes on L campaign, and I won't go through, I don't have time, the litany of low things that they did and said about people. I will just tell you this one thing. They put out a flyer that attacked school children in a neighboring city, Antioch. They tried to fearmonger to get people to be afraid that Antioch children would come to our schools, even though Antioch children already come to our schools because they're not our schools. The districts cross those city lines. There's nothing really wrong with Antioch, right? People just live in Antioch. This is the worst kind of dog whistle politics. They just, the fears that they're trying to stir up. I don't want to be explicit about it, but it's disgusting. No decent human being would have put that flyer out. Children in our schools were brought to tears, Antioch children, because they thought that they were less than. And I cannot forgive that. And I can't see anybody on the city council forgiving that. And it would be a complete mockery of citizen involvement to put somebody like that on any kind of an official city position. And I guarantee you, I will complain if she gets on there, because this is not the kind of person I want representing my city. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Cynthiana Todor, followed by Danny Dorman. Cynthiana, go ahead.
Hi, good evening. Thank you, Margaret, and thank you for the opportunity to speak. It is an important decision you have to make tonight in respect to appointing board members for the Public Financing Authority for Brentwood Innovation Center and Brentwood Boulevard Downtown Enhanced Infrastructure. So for this, these are one of the biggest economic development projects that hopefully will bring Brentwood to the 2022 level from an economic development perspective. So let's just talk really quickly about candidates. There are 4 candidates that you had the opportunity to review their applications. 2 of them do not have financial experience and did not even bother to attach a resume, something that will show a little bit of interest and a little bit of effort in marketing themselves and their experience. I'm talking in particular Annette Beckstrand and JoAnn Klement. While they both said they have practical experience, they are not to be trusted. As Rod already mentioned, they both campaigned for yes on L. So only that off the bat tells you that their values are against 70% of Brentwood residents who said we want to keep Brentwood and we don't agree with the development that's been proposed. Also, Annette Beckstrand lied during Measure L campaign by not disclosing she worked for the non-family doing their marketing campaign. Once she was called out on social media, she had no choice but admit it. JoAnn Klement hosted meetings at her house promoting and advocating for Measure L. If she could, on top of that, she mentions that she was on HOA for Shadow Lakes. So just think about this. If she could not manage maintaining the fountain at the entrance of the neighborhood, how can we trust her when managing finances for these 2 big projects? They are both pro-developer and with emphasis on residential building as a vehicle for economic development. How can 2 candidates, again, whose beliefs and vision contradict 70% of Brentwood residents, can be trusted managing finances? The other 2, I strongly recommend you put them on this board. They are very strong candidates with practical financial experience and capital improvement project management. They were both very transparent and submitted their resume to reflect their expertise. So you have a choice to make. I'm really hoping you will make the right choice. Thank you.
Thank you. The next speaker is Danny Dorman. Mr. Dorman, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I'll be brief because I really don't know the 4 candidates. I do know U5, and U5 have made such positive changes during this cycle, and the choices you've made and the direction you're going in. So I'm confident that U5 will choose the right folks. Again, I don't know any of the 4 candidates. I did listen to the previous 2 speakers. So, but again, I don't know them, so I'm not going to draw conclusions. I just want to commend in advance the efforts of U5. Thank you.
I have no additional speakers with their hands raised.
Thank you. So at this time, we will close public comments. We will now take a 3-minute recess so that we can move to the other link. Members of the public may move to the video feed on the city's website to view the remainder of the meeting. And so at this time, we are in recess, and we'll see you on the other link.
We're ensuring that we're streaming on our end, so it'll be just a second.
You just let us know when we're ready and we'll start.
Okay, Mayor, it's ready to go.
Okay, so it appears the interview Zoom meeting is active, and the members of the public can view the interviews on the City Council Agenda's webpage. So we will move into item 1. It's now time to hold the interviews for board members for the Public Financing Authority, for the Brentwood Innovation Center and Brentwood Boulevard, Downtown Enhanced Infrastructure Financing Districts. And I will ask Tim Ogden to explain this part of the process. City Manager.
Do we want Vice Mayor Rodriguez on camera again?
Yes, it would be beneficial for all of us to be there. We go. Thank you. All right. I'm sorry, I think I cut my mic off. Tim?
Good evening, Mayor and Council. So tonight you have 4 different applicants scheduled, and we should expect at least 3 for sure. We have one that may be on a cruise ship, but should be able to join us if possible. And you have the questions in front of you, so we'll bring in one applicant at a time, and you'll have a chance to ask your questions. And then, as we've done with the other commissions, consider amongst yourselves the pros and cons and make your recommendations to the mayor, and then the mayor will make a final motion and then see if there's council consensus. And if there isn't consensus on appointing to these 2 EIFD and Enhanced Infrastructure Financing District public financing authority commissions, then we can certainly go back out and do another recruitment for them. So with that, I'll turn it back over to you.
Thank you. So we will.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
before we get started, I want to clarify something. We had, I thought when we talked about this board that we asked whether or not the people we were interviewing were going to serve on a single board or on both boards. And I thought the consensus was that they would serve on both boards. Is that accurate?
That is accurate as far as the conversation we had at council. It's my understanding, and if any other council members remember differently, that we did agree to choose 2 representatives to set up on both boards.
Okay, all right. And also, is one of them being looked at, there was also the question of whether or not the county was going to join. And if the county was going to join, weren't one of those going to be, weren't we going to choose a first person and then an alternate versus choosing both of them? And do we know the status of the county joining? Because I think that may make a difference in our votes at the end.
It will. In this voting, the number position of your vote 1 and number 2 are important. I haven't heard. Tim, do we know if the county has responded to us regarding their participation?
The county is currently considering a countywide policy that they're looking at to govern how they want to enter into or not with the cities and their different PFAs. So they are meeting with the finance committee sometime soon to talk about that policy before it comes before the full board of supervisors. So they've not yet given us the thumbs up or thumbs down yet, but we're getting all of the process set up in place. And as the mayor laid out, select your public members' participation by priority, and then should the county participate at some later point, and they can jump in at any point as far as I understand, then they would be able to have an appointment, and so it would supersede the cities. So there's some interaction in that way.
Okay, right, thanks.
Okay. And thank you for helping us clarify that. We want to make sure we're on the same page. So if we could bring in our first applicant.
The first applicant I had in my random order was JoAnn Klement, and I don't see her present. She may not have been able to join. I will now bring in Annette Beckstrand. Annette, if you could enable your audio and video. There you are. Thank you.
There.
Well, good evening, Ms. Beckstrand, and welcome. Thank you for your application. The process tonight is that we are interviewing, at this point, 3 applicants. The 4th was unable to attend tonight, apparently. And our city council members are all going to be each asking you a question. Then at the end of the question, which will be the same question for all applicants, we will then have a council discussion and make the decision tonight. So at this time, I will turn the questions over to Councilmember Mendoza to start off, and she'll begin asking questions. Councilmember Mendoza.
Thank you. Hello, Annette. Here is my question. Are you aware of any conflicts of interest which may interfere with your responsibility as a PFA board member with either the area previously known as PA1, Innovation Center, or Brentwood Boulevard? And then have you ever been employed in any capacity or had any contracts with any of the landowners in either area as well?
Yes, my home is actually located right on the boundary of Sand Creek and O'Hara Boulevard. And I believe that comes into Area B Is that what you're calling it on the map? I don't have the map in front of me. And so for anything within the conflict of interest radius in that specific footage, I would need to recuse myself from any votes. So if that's clear, if you have any questions about that. And then let's see, I believe that some of the landowners, yes, I have recently been employed as a consultant for one of the landowners. It was a couple of years ago. I don't have any ongoing established relationship with them. Like I said, it was a consulting position. I will note that for the audio I could pick up on during the public comments, I only heard Mr. Rod's comments. The comment about me being a marketing director, I've never been a marketing director of anything. I've never had anything to do with flyers or, so I don't know where that information came from. If you have any questions regarding that as well, feel free to ask, but,
okay,
and I don't know what else might have been put out on the table, but that is not the case.
Okay, so can you clarify what your role was as a consultant and who was it for?
I was hired by the Measure L campaign to simply help educate the community, mostly on a face-to-face discussion level. So talk to people, share things with people, be available to answer questions, set up, just help facilitate just getting people together to hear the presentations.
But what is that like? So did you have a place you had presentations, or like what exactly? How did you do that?
Not me. I just let them know when there were people who wanted more information that I had talked to in passing, and then they scheduled meetings, they did the presentations, all of that. So it was really only supposed to be a funnel for people who were interested. And then I did do one of the television debates on closed circuit television. So that I tried to take, my understanding, and I'm sure I, muffed up here and there on details during the debate, but for the most part, just tried to share the information I knew in that debate with Kathy Griffin during the thing. So that was the other part of my thing.
So let's clarify. I was at a lot of those Measure L's. I just want to understand your role exactly. I was at a lot of those Measure L meetings, and I did see you there. You were within the audience and would speak up a lot. Was your role to be sitting there and speaking up on behalf of Measure L?
No, I was just there because I wanted to keep abreast of conversations, who was interested, who had questions, what was being said in the public. And then when I commented, it was of my own personal accord and my own personal thoughts and things that I felt should be shared based on my knowledge and my experience.
Okay, I recall being at Somerset and you saying you were there on behalf of the campaign.
I don't recall if I said that at the time. Yeah. Then it may have been, okay. It may have come across that way. That's fine. Of course, because I was helping to connect people and information, I may have phrased it that way or a way that would be taken that way. And that is I suppose that's a fair interpretation of just part of how I was trying to be involved and help them connect people with questions, looking for information with the people who had the bottom line answers.
Okay.
So that might be fair.
When you say you worked for the Measure L campaign, I remember a video of you sitting there with Mr. Nunn, specifically signing your contract to be a consultant. So it was with Mr. Nunn that you signed the contract?
A video of me signing a contract with Mr. Nunn?
Yeah, and he gave you cherries, or you were eating cherries and working with him, and you specifically were signing a contract in the video, and it was all over Facebook. So I want to understand exactly what your role is. I don't understand Because if you're signing a consulting contract, there's specific requirements. And I don't understand what it means, like talking people face to face. That's what I'm trying to understand. What were the guidelines of the contract for your consultation? Like exactly what were your tasks? And that's what I'm not understanding. I'm sorry.
Well, it was pretty loose. It was just to be able to connect people with information, tie in people that I knew that would just help educate on the presentations they were doing.
Okay, thank you.
I'm not aware I was ever videoed signing a contract.
You guys were in a room and it was you and him talking about the good things coming up, but it's okay.
Okay.
Thank you. Councilmember Meyer.
Hi. How regularly have you attended or watched city council meetings or commission meetings? Which ones and why?
In the past year, 2 years, what do you mean?
I want to say 3 years.
Not a lot. Not a lot. Spotty here and there when a project's been near me. As a citizen, I've looked in. I really haven't been that connected with a lot because I had other things going on in my life and didn't anticipate something coming up that I would want to jump into in the same way as the way I learned about this. And it interested me because I know we need the economic development. We need to be able to work with some of those areas that have been stalled. We need to figure out, how we can move forward. And I just felt like with some of my experience in the community over the years, you've all seen my resume, I felt like I could come in from several different positions of experience and perspective to contribute to discussion and ideas.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Rarey.
Good evening. How are you?
Great. Karen, how are you?
I'm doing well. In your opinion, what are one or two of the major issues facing economic development in the city of Brentwood currently? And what do you perceive to be some of the major obstacles impeding private sector investment and development needs that meet the needs of our and desires of our community?
Well, I kind of come at this backwards from the end of your questions to the beginning. I've always felt like Brentwood needed more professional level jobs so that more of our parents could work closer to home and we could have a better quality of family life. And I remember once upon a time when I was very new to Brentwood, I was a young mom with 5 children under the age of 11 and trying to just keep them in shoes and having to drive to either Livermore or Concord every time somebody outgrew a pair of shoes. And if you've ever had that many kids, you know that that's about every 3 to 4 weeks. And I remember just kind of chatting with Barbara Guys one day, and she said, "Oh, you'll never even get a Payless shoes here. You're going to be driving to Concord or Livermore your whole life for these kids." And I thought, oh my heavens, I hope that's not true. I mean, we don't want to see us turn into some big, huge, messy city, but hopefully we could eventually attract the things that we need to just sustain a good, solid family life. And over the years, we've had some spurts and success in those areas. And then we've also experienced some of the economic development recessions that have put an incredible strain on our parents and families. And so what I see is kind of a combination of resources, community and city being available to people with economic development prospects for our community. I see a lack of developable, is that a word? Land, or landowners that are unreasonable when coming to the table about what can be done, how we can work together for the betterment of economic development. And I also see resources dropped off the table that we're just not quick enough to pick up on, that are provided in some of our other state agencies and federal agencies that would be great if we could, muster enough information, details, perspective, ideas to put together to bring those things in to help with that. So there is a lot of area in that planning area A and planning area B that I think has a lot of potential. And I would just like to be able to come to the table and help share what I've learned, learn more, and be a part of bringing the economic balance to our community that can sustain our city's needs. Parks and Rec, we all know that's a budget sucker. And, if we can bring other resources in to sustain the things we want to provide for the community, keep our parents closer to their children, we know that that enriches education, it enriches families. The police department feels the benefits of that when that's working well. It's just a win-win for everyone.
One of the comments that you made, you said there's a lack of developable land. So, but then you said that we've got the planning area A and B, but so do you not feel those areas are developable, or?
I guess my thought, my intent in that is those lands are great. They should be developed. I guess it's not so much a lack of land, it's a kind of inability to get things moving on the lands that are available and get them in the queue, get things moving, get the right people at the table together to really work toward a beneficial outcome for all, instead of the things that I know in my past experience have gone on where we're haggling over property rights and dollar value and, economic income on properties that's there or maybe not there, and, how we really end up with something that's beneficial to, for me, it really comes down to what's happening in the homes for families. I raised my 5 children in Brentwood. I have 19 grandchildren, and many of those go to Brentwood schools. And many of them are very nearby in the community. And what's happening here in our schools and our parks is near and dear to me. And I see what the young families are going through, trying to have quality time and make ends meet. And I think that economic development is a huge part of that. It's a huge part of the foundation for our families. It affects our emergency services. It affects our police services, our public safety. It affects everything with home and families. And I feel that if it's done really well, that it can be a win-win for the community as a whole.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
I'm sorry, Vice Mayor, you're muted, I think, still. I'm not hearing you.
Sorry about that.
That's
Hello,
all right.
Annette. How you doing?
Hi, Johnny, I'm great.
Okay, my question is, please summarize your background and experience as it pertains to the role of this board, and why are you interested in serving on this board? And I know you've somewhat said a few things already, but if you could just recap and summarize a little bit more, that'd be great.
Well, I've come from the resident perspective. I've been on the city council and understood city budgets and government processes, government funding and grants, and bonding and special facilities districts and taxes and all of that. I understand how all of that works already. I understand the importance of working together with the community. I understand and have been very successful in negotiating with some of the same landowners that we're talking about in this in order to get the bypass authority right-of-ways that got the Highway 4 bypass all the way out to Marsh Creek Road and Vasco Road. I was chair of the ECRFA and ECTA committees and those that I mentioned on the resume. And I personally was a big part of the negotiations that moved those right-of-ways forward. And so I understand those things as well. I've been a small business owner in our downtown on First Street. I know what it's like to have your family's retirement invested in a brick and mortar store. So for those, big businesses and the small businesses and the people in between, I feel like I have played a role on every side of those things, except maybe throwing the hammer, which I do at home on my own remodel projects. I feel like I have a lot of experience in that area and would like to be able to share that.
Okay, thank you very much, Annette.
You're welcome.
Okay, Annette, this is the last question. It is, what is your understanding of the responsibilities of this PFA board?
Well, I understand that there will be a lot of reading. I understand that there will be a lot of maps. There will probably be a lot of informational meetings and discussions. And I understand that I will need to gain a better understanding of the options for those planning areas, probably a deeper understanding of the funding and the regulations around those fundings. There will be meetings to attend, there will be opinions to share, and there will be a lot of working together to undo preconceived ideas, learn new perceptions and perspectives, and figure out what in the long run is going to work best and do it together as a team with whomever we're working with.
Well, thank you very much.
You're welcome.
What we'll do now is we will have our IT team, I think Margaret is in this process as well, put you in a waiting area, and we will bring in the next interview. And so thank you. At the end of this process, we will make our decision tonight. So thank you so much for your effort.
All right. Thank you.
The next applicant is Lars Sandberg. Mr. Sandberg, if you could go ahead and unmute your mic and turn on your video.
How's that?
You're coming through loud and clear, and
okay, good.
Great to see you. So looking good. Well, Mr. Sandberg, thank you so much for joining us tonight and for your application. The process tonight will be as follows. All of the city council members have questions that they're going to ask you. The same questions will be asked to each applicant. And at the end of this process tonight, council will have a discussion and a vote, and we will elect to fulfill these positions for the PFA. So if you'll hang on for the rest of the evening after this interview, we will have our recommendations and our vote tonight. But again, I do want to thank you so much. I know that you've been involved in the community for some time, and I really appreciate your application. So at this time, I will turn it to Councilmember Mendoza for her questions.
Thank you. Hello, Lars. Hope you're doing well. Your first question is, are you of any area of conflicts of interest which may interfere with your responsibility as an FPA board member, either for the PA1 section Innovation Center or the Brentwood Boulevard? And have you ever worked for any of the landowners, I can't talk, or had any contracts with them?
I'd say no and no.
Oh, that was pretty easy. Okay.
Yeah, I did work with some landowners in this general area of West Brentwood when I bought land for the Los Vaqueros project. That was about 30 years ago. We put a pipeline down along where the bypass is now. But I think all those property owners that I dealt with at that time, 30 years ago, are no longer own these properties, to my knowledge.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councilmember Meyer.
Thank you. Thanks for coming tonight. In the past 3 years, how regularly have you attended or watched city council or commission meetings? And if so, which ones, why?
I would say we have made the city council meetings a Tuesday evening regular event. We usually turn it on while we're cooking dinner, and then I usually stay on till whenever it's done. My wife sometimes dozes off a little bit towards the end, but and sometimes it's hard to actually fight that off. But yeah, we watch the planning commission meetings. We watched there was a special public meeting on the Brentwood Boulevard project probably about 6 months ago that we watched. I think we watched one on the Innovation Center as well several years ago. So it's a regular event.
Okay. I didn't get to ask this question before. It's part of the same question. How do you think those have prepared you for this position?
I think it's given me some good background. I have been following what's been going on in Brentwood for the last 35 years. I was hired by the Water District to buy land for the Los Vaqueros project. So I was out here all the time dealing with property owners, mostly down in the watershed, but also along the pipelines. I remember driving past Apple Hill Estates when that was first being built back probably 30 or 35 years ago, and kind of thought to myself, who would ever live this far out? This is so far away from everything. Ended up moving to Antioch, lived there for 23 years, and kind of watched what's going on in Brentwood with a bit of an envious eye. Felt that Brentwood was doing things right, not growing too quickly, but had a good pace of growth. So I've been following, been on all kinds of East County bulletin boards back when that first started, and then or message boards, and then some of the local Facebook groups. So I'd say I'm real prepared.
Thank you.
Good evening.
Hello.
So, in your opinion, what are one or two of the major issues facing economic development in the city of Brentwood?
I think what the city needs, we need more jobs. I've been commuting on Highway 4 since 1990. I'd like to get some of these cars off my freeway and get more people working in East County. I'd love to work in East County myself. I've been working from home for the last 2 years, and that's I've avoided traffic that way. But I think got to attract the right kind of businesses to come in. And I know that's been difficult. Kind of watched what happened with the streets of Brentwood, where they had some real top tier businesses come in initially, and then one by one they kind of dropped off. I guess partially as the economy kind of went south there for a while, and maybe they just I think too many people commute to Concord and Walnut Creek and San Francisco, and they do their shopping there. We need more jobs out here, so less commuting and more people shopping out here. I think that would raises sales tax revenue, property tax.
And what do you perceive to be some of the major obstacles impeding private sector investment and development that meets the needs and desires of our community?
I think it's just attracting the right people. I think having good city staff to for economic development helps. But I think a lot of the big business, retail at least, they look at demographics and kind of decide based on that what kind of purchasing power is out here, and that attracts top tier companies. I think as far as work businesses, I think having Route 239 might help as far as traffic and the easy access to Brentwood from the other parts of the Bay Area and the state. I think that would help. Always felt like Highway 4 was always been kind of a cul-de-sac. And now it's just a wider cul-de-sac. We do have Vasco Road that helps a little bit. And, if you drive down the access road to the old, to Los Vaqueros Marina, I always remind my friends that used to be the commute route to Livermore from here. And this was truly, Brentwood was truly the kind of the end of the road when you drove out this way, unless you were going to Stockton. This is.
Oh, and it was a beautiful route too.
Yes, it was, but not all that safe and not all that fast.
Yeah. All right. Well, thank you. I appreciate your answers.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Hello, Mr. Sandberg. How are you doing, sir? Please summarize your background and experience as it pertains to the role of this board, and why are you interested in serving on this board?
I have been with Contra Costa Water District for about 35 years. I was hired to be part of the Los Vaqueros Reservoir Project team initially. That was a $450 million project back in the 1990s. So we're probably closer to $850 million adjusted for inflation to today's dollars. And we brought that project in under budget and on schedule. And we did a lot of bond financing for that. That was almost 100% bond finance with long-term bonds, and we're starting to pay some of those off now. We have, the Water District has about $300 million of outstanding bond debt right now. We pay about $35 million a year in debt service. Anyhow, the Los Vaqueros project finished up. I stayed on and extended my role with project controls was expanded district-wide. I have been involved in every major project that we have worked on. I prepare the cost estimates for our 10-year financial CIP and financial plan. I've been involved in some of the bond sales. We did one just this last summer for about $90 million that we refinanced. Got a great interest rate on it. See, the interest rates are creeping up a bit. I think we ended up about 2.5% 30-year bonds, which is real good. It saves our ratepayers a lot of money. We have issued about 24 different series of bonds over the last 35 years. A lot of them just refinancing bonds as interest rates drop. I am, as I mentioned, I've been involved in work in the East County for the last 35 years. I'd like to get back to the community. I was very excited that I could finally afford to move to Brentwood after some of our kids moved out and we could downsize. It's, I think it's a great community to live in. I think we're all blessed to live here. Sometimes when we first moved out here, I just sat and shook my head and just, I can't believe I'm living in Brentwood finally. So I just want to contribute to the community. I think it's a great city. I've noticed over the last 2 years that I've been working from home. But when I do go out during the week, it's a pretty vibrant place. And before that, when I was just commuting, I'd leave in the morning, come back at night. And, I didn't realize how busy this city is. And I'd like to just contribute and keep it great and maybe make it greater.
Thank you, Mr. Sandberg.
Mr. Sandberg, this is the last question. What is your understanding of the responsibilities of this PFA board?
Well, I think it's to from what I understand, to review and approve financing plans, to provide some input into that. I think that's something where my background is fairly unique. I have an engineering degree from UCLA, 35 years of working in public works, including a lot of financing work. So it's oversight and advice and approval, and just provide input, and there may be a different perspective on things.
Thank you very much. At this time, we will have you moved into another room as we interview the final interviewee, and then we will have council discussion and a vote to fill these positions. But again, I want to thank you for your time and your application, and we will have an answer tonight on our decision as a council. So thank you very much.
Thank you for the opportunity.
I'll bring in Stephanie Whiting, the final applicant.
Good evening, Ms. Whiting. Can you hear us okay?
Yes, I can.
Great, and we can hear you well also. Thank you for joining us, and thank you for your application. Tonight, we are interviewing applicants for our PFA board, and the process will be that council will ask you the same questions that they've asked each of the other applicants. And then tonight we will make a decision for filling these positions. So thank you again for your application.
No, thank you for having me.
And I will turn it now to Councilmember Mendoza to begin the question. Are you ready?
Yes.
Okay.
Hello, how are you doing?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you. Okay, first question. Are you aware of any conflicts of interest which may interfere with your responsibility as a PFA board member? And have you ever worked with any of the landlords in the area, PA1 or Brentwood Boulevard, or done any consulting or any contract work for them?
So to answer both questions, no. I've never worked with any of the developers, contractors, landlords, what have you. I've luckily stayed in my area that is mortgage financing. So.
And that one's easy. Thank you.
Councilmember Meyer.
Hi, thank you for coming tonight.
Thank you for having me.
Good. How regularly in the past 3 years have you attended or watched city council or other commission meetings? Which ones and why, and how would they have prepared you for this position?
So I have not regularly watched any of Brentwood City Council meetings. I have, however, attended some from the City of Antioch, and I did serve on the, I want to say it was Measure M for the City of Antioch. They had a half-cent increased sales tax, and I did serve on the board for that Citizens Oversight Committee for 2 years for the 2018 and 2019 year. Ending my commission in the middle of 2020. I feel like my position with the oversight committee with the City of Antioch has sort of prepared me for this position, knowing that it does go over the finances in regards to where money is being spent, how it's being spent, and why it's being spent because of that.
Were you an Antioch resident at the time?
I was, yes.
Okay, that explains that. Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
Councilmember Rarey.
Sorry about that. Couldn't get my mute button undone fast enough. So good evening, how are you?
I'm good, how are you?
I'm doing well. So, in your opinion, what are one or two of the major issues facing economic development in the city of Brentwood?
Whew, two issues. To pick between which one. So I know I can say as a resident myself, we definitely are struggling with affordable housing. That is a major issue. I think that's just being experienced across the board from a Bay Area perspective. But I know as a parent who has kids in Brentwood school districts, you know, it's hard to, as a parent, want to make sure that you have kids that have good schools, but also where you're able to live there and buy a home. And the housing has definitely been a challenge for those who aren't able to afford, you know, $600,000, $1 million to purchase a home and to be able to have their kids go to really good schools. So affordable housing is number one. And then number two, you know, I believe the city of Brentwood lacks, you know, a lot of the major employers that are, you know, helping other larger cities continue to thrive. I do see Brentwood growing, and albeit not at the pace that I believe we should be growing, because we lack the employment resources to have quality candidates and quality type of businesses come in here and help bring up this great city.
Okay. And what do you perceive to be some of the major obstacles impeding private sector investment and development that meets the needs and desires of our local community in regards to economic development?
I believe there's not just a misunderstanding, but also there's miscommunication that goes on between, you know, what the city's role is in relation to economic development, what they can and can't do. And then in addition to that, how the city's budget actually operates. You know, when Measure L was a very huge topic in the city of Brentwood, I know there was a lot of people who were very much against it. And, you know, there's a lot of ways that, you know, as a city, we can go about educating the public versus a yes versus a no vote. And I believe, you know, there should be other ways that we need to be reaching out to our own residents and having conversations with them and explaining to them how city budgets actually work. Because for the most part, you know, the new development money is really what's going to fix those cities, those streets and things like that, not necessarily, you know, being upset and yelling at city council meetings for them to fix the streets. I mean, that's really going to do nothing. And so with the misunderstanding of the way that the city governments operate is very much something that I think the public needs to have a better understanding over. And I think that in of itself is one of the reasons that is hindering the city of growing in a positive way, not necessarily just allowing everyone to move here and with what have you.
Okay, but what about getting private investment to bring economic development here? What do you think is impeding that?
Well, I think it's the way that the city government operates, and then it's also because of the loops that the private developments have to go through. I mean, you're talking from, just as an example with Measure L, these private developers had to spend over $1 million and some change in environmental impact reports before they can even put something on the ballot for it to even get voted for, whether or not they even want to do that. So, you know, when you have these corporations that want to help these communities and build more housing, and they're providing funding to fix streets and stuff like that, and you know, the public doesn't know all of the information at once. They're getting two different sides, and you know, they're all just turning around and fighting each other. And if we make it expensive for these developers to come in here and spend millions of dollars only to be turned around and pushed away because they didn't write their proposal in a way that's going to benefit Brentwood to the best of what they can offer us, then, you know, that's, you know, it's a tug and pull between private entities and developers and, you know, the city government, and then also its residents. So I think there's, you know, you have to sort of compromise between each party. And I don't know if we're all doing that in a way that can benefit Brentwood effectively.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Thank you, Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
think he's on mute.
Leave it. Sorry about that. Hello, Ms. Whiting. My question is, please summarize your background and your experience as it pertains to the role of this board, and why are you interested in serving on this board?
So I'm interested in several reasons. As a resident, as a parent, and as someone who is heavily involved in financing in general, and with the background that I have with the oversight committee with the city of Antioch, I feel like a fresh new face who's, under the age of 40 probably would be a lot of, fresh ideas that can come in here and help the city reach out to the younger generation that is coming into home ownership and being able to educate a lot of our our residents, potential new residents, and business owners that are coming in here. I love the downtown area. I frequent those businesses a lot, and I want to be able to help contribute to the city in more of an effective way, separate from what I do on a 9-to-5 basis, because I firsthand have seen, what the benefits are to, being involved in the city and being involved in knowing who our community members are and being able to explain to, the residents themselves if they have questions, and being able to explain to them in the way that they understand why we're doing things the way we're doing them, and for the benefit of Brentwood, obviously.
Thank you. Thank you.
Okay, Ms. Whiting, this is the last question. What is your understanding of the responsibilities of this PFA board?
So the responsibilities that I understand are, I believe, at least one meeting a quarter, and it's to go over what the tax increment allocations have been given, how that money is going to be utilized, where it's going to be utilized, and continue to help the city itself make those decisions and help them make Brentwood continuously a better place to live. And I'm hoping that, I'm able to come into this and shake some things up, with me being probably one of the youngest people interested in city government at this point. I'm just wanting to eagerly get involved in the city and helps that, with the requirements, or at least the requests that this particular board wants to have, a good amount of financial experience. I do think I very much meet that. I've been in this financial industry since 2002. So I've kind of seen a thing or two from a finance standpoint, and how things operate and why they operate the way they do.
Can I ask a follow-up question from Councilwoman Rarey's question? Is that okay?
Mm-hmm.
Sure.
Okay. Sorry. So I think we were probably on different sides of Measure All, which is totally okay. But how one of the things that once elected, you find out you serve the people and what they want, and how would you go about when, like, and for Measure L, for example, 71% of people did not want that the urban limit line moved or the increased housing. How are you going to work with it when maybe you don't agree with the majority of the residents?
Well, I think it's a matter of one, my personal beliefs are going to be completely separate, especially when I'm serving in an office of a government official type elected position or nominated position, number one. Number two, if we're talking just specifically over Measure L, I think, there can be misconceptions from the city standpoint and even the residents of trying to figure out, well, what's the reason why, they're upset over it or they're disagreeing with it? And are there things that we can have a conversation about in, addressing the concerns that they have? Because I don't know if, oftentimes when you have something that's going to come up on the ballot, you either have a yes or a no, and very little are we able to hear, what's the word I'm looking for, amicable sort of conversations over, why, increasing development in the city of Brentwood can benefit Brentwood, and here's why. What are your concerns over that? And I think addressing their concerns is really going to be, whether or not it should be good for the city or not good for the city. My opinion wouldn't matter either way when I'm having a conversation with them. It's more a matter of trying to figure out what their concern is and why their concern is that, so it can be addressed, whether it's at a city council meeting or what have you.
Okay, and this role has more to do with economic development. I know you talked a lot about the residential development. So I think back to her question is like major obstacles when it comes to economic. I know you talked about the environmental impact, like, all those studies. Are you okay with just throwing out those studies, or because I'm really big on the environment, so that kind of scares me, right? Like, I feel that we should do our due diligence to make sure that we're protecting Mother Earth as much as possible. And that is expensive. So how do we manage that at the same time? And then some of them are county laws. They're not even our laws, right?
Oh, sure.
It's not even the city. Yeah,
no. And I'm not, I'm all for pro-growth. I feel like, there's other ways to go about growth than, building wide. And I feel like, there are developments and developers that are out there that can do it in a much more sustainable way that is not going out wider and making sure that we're taking up all of the land that we possibly have. Because at that rate, if we continue to do that, we will run out of space at some point. And that's not what we want. We all really love the hills that we have in Brentwood. I mean, my backyard looks at Mount Diablo. I don't want to see houses behind me. I like being able to see that out there. I feel like what we as a city should be working on and having conversations about is, how do we utilize the space we already have, and how do we make it so that it's profitable for the city, it's good for our residents, and it does also provide jobs. And so building up condos, specifically speaking, are a much better opportunity for those who need affordable housing. We're only building up. We're not necessarily building out and taking up the beautiful land that Brentwood has and upsetting, residents who may or may not, already have really great views in, Shadow Lakes or Deer Ridge or anything like that. Do I think we should, build more houses out there? No, because I think the developers, they have enough money. They're able to take advantage of the space we have. I mean, we have an amount of, and this is not just Brentwood, but cities and businesses in general that aren't even paying rent in the commercial space they're in because there's just not a lot of traffic, and some of these, places are sitting empty. So what are we going to do about them? Are we going to continue to let them be vacant? Are we going to work with the current owners of the property and figure out ways to make it better for the city? Because it doesn't do our city any good to have these, commercial buildings empty at all. And so we have to sort of think outside the box and reinvent ourselves as far as how we talk to our clients and our citizens and having conversations of what are your ideas of, building Brentwood in a much better light, bringing more jobs here, because we all know no one wants to drive to San Francisco or San Jose, but we all know that's just what's happening. And people are coming here because the schools are great and the prices are cheaper than over the hill in Livermore and 2 hours away in San Francisco. But the only way to offset, the building that everybody thinks we need to do is to go up. And condos are one of the most affordable ways that people can get in and own a house and pay property taxes for the city of Brentwood and create additional revenue.
Okay. Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
You're welcome.
Ms. Whiting, that was all of the questions. Thank you for answering them, and thank you for your application. So at this time, you will be moved into a waiting room, and City Council will have our discussion and come to a vote for these two positions tonight, and we will have the decision tonight. So thank you again for your time, your application, and just hang on. We'll finish this process very shortly.
Thank you very much all for your time. I appreciate it.
Okay, so Margaret, is everyone safe in their breakout rooms or whatever those rooms are now?
Yes, the applicants are in the breakout room.
Okay, so at this time, we'll open discussion. We've got a lot to talk about. Councilmember Rarey.
Well, I gotta say, I think Lars is really the only qualified applicant. I just didn't get that the other two, one didn't have a financial background, which is what this is about. And two, although Stephanie Whiting does, as a mortgage officer, I don't think she understood exactly that this was towards getting funds to increase economic development or build roads or sewers and so forth to bring in more jobs. So I was a little concerned about that. And while she did have the measure, the Antioch Oversight Committee that she was with, I just quickly went through that website and there was quite a few absences. The meeting, one of the meetings that she did attend, she did ask a lot of questions, which were good. I mean, she asked quite a few questions in that. While Annette, she's got experience all around, I didn't get the same. I think what I was hoping for is someone with some financial background in this. And I don't know how it was advertised, but maybe that's something if we could see again what the advertising was for this committee. Because I don't know, even when Annette was talking, she had mentioned, she's dealt with these landowners and so forth, but that's not necessarily what this committee is about. So yeah, I mean, that's where I stand right now. I see one qualified applicant.
Okay. Councilmember Meyer. I'm sorry, Mendoza.
You call me Meyer. I agree with Councilmember Rarey. I think Lars is highly qualified. We are lucky to have him apply from his resume and his interview. The thing that concerns me about Stephanie is if 71% of your population wants to go in a certain way, we got to listen to them. And I did read everything when it came to Measure L, and I would get the marketing pieces and then go into the actual application, the thick application, and find the truth that actually negated what was in the marketing papers, right? So it's not that we didn't understand it. So that kind of concerns me. She does have a financial background. She gets it. But my concern is we have to decide about these funds and allocation, and are we going to do what's best for me, or am I going to do what's best for the people of Brentwood? And that concerns me. Unfortunately, I cannot support Annette. I'm the one who called her out online. She was working for Bob Nunn, and she was not disclosing that she was. I found out she was through a company that's actually registered under her husband, and I called her out on it. And then she thought, well, my friends and family know. And I said, well, if you're going to be promoting something as a paid employee, you should disclose that. And I was at meetings where it was not speaking as herself. It's every time we would get up, we were attacked about it. And I wish I would have known she was getting paid. So I lost my trust with her the minute I found that out. And when it comes to the flyer, she worked for the Measure L campaign. She was getting paid by them. I don't know if you all remember that flyer, but it was awful. And the students at Heritage and Adams were so upset, and they were Black children from Heritage and Adams that had to see them being used as pawns by the Measure L campaign as a way to get people not to vote for it. And it was awful. I wish what she would have said as soon as I saw that ad, I quit. It was below me and my ethics and my morals. That's not what I heard. Like, I wish I would have heard that. But so I cannot support her on a level of different reasons. I can't do that, especially to the people that are impacted, and especially because a lot of them were kids.
Now, Councilmember Meyer.
Thank you. I was very, very excited about what Lars brought to the table. And my original question I had was moot when we made clear that we were only going to have one board. So I quickly had to rewrite something. And I thought, you know what I really want to know about is engagement. Like, why are you here? And how did you hear about this? And what have you done to be involved with the city and currently? So I was really happy to hear about the regular attendance of the council meetings and the planning commissions, and having watched both the Innovation Center and the Brentwood Boulevard town halls. I think that right there says that's what I want to hear. That's what I want to hear, that someone is focused on these particular projects, and this is how they're getting ready for being involved and understanding these particular projects. So that impressed the heck out of me, and I wish we did have more than one of him. I was impressed by Stephanie Whiting's financial knowledge. I was a little concerned when I kept hearing about residential growth, and there wasn't, the question kept coming back to economic development, and I don't feel like that was really answered. It was more about residential growth and affordable housing. Love affordable housing, but that's not part of this discussion. So I'm unsure. I mean, I 100% feel that Lars is a great fit. I'm just not sure otherwise.
Vice Mayor, do you have any thoughts on this right now?
Yeah, just, I think Lars was very good as well. I think he comes with a wealth of knowledge. The other two, I don't know how we put this out. Is it, do you have, for you to qualify to apply, is it that you have a financial background? I know that both of these ladies have a lot of community involvement in a sense, not just in Brentwood, but also in Antioch. So I don't know if when we put this out, if there was more of a focus on the financial portion of it, or we just had it open to anybody. I know Annette comes with a wealth of knowledge when it comes to council, being a part of a lot of different groups in Brentwood. So I'll be honest, but I do believe, I think Mr. Sandberg did a really good job. I think he also has a tremendous financial background, but also it's nice to know that he's been participating in various meetings and things like that. So yeah, it's a tough one in regards to the other two young ladies.
I agree about Mr. Sandberg. He has been, he described himself very well and his abilities. He is, I had an opportunity to speak to him on, I believe it was on National Night Out. We met with he and his wife at their home. They had hosted one of the events. He is a brilliant person. And in my opinion, the representatives for our city, our families on this decision, and we all know that this future, really, this holds the future of, say, sustainability for our community. If we don't do this very well, we are missing the opportunity to continue to have the quality of life and improve on that with the businesses that this was the goal. I know Council Member Rarey and I have spent 2 years on diligently preparing what the vision for the community was. We had a community working group as well. And so this is very important, I know, to all of our council members and our community, the ones that are paying attention, and even the ones that aren't. When they find out that this is something that we're working on, they're always relieved and impressed with it. One of the things that was impressive that Ms. Whiting said was this process is something that is going to have to find common ground for all of our businesses, all of our futures, all of our community, and being willing to get people from diverse backgrounds, opposing opinions, setting them at a table, listening. It was really important to me that she used the word listening and hearing what they're saying. I know in the past that our community has had different views on many different things, and very passionate views. But anytime we're able to get those views at a table and not necessarily do away with the emotion, because that's human, but in spite of the emotion, come together and find out what are the core issues we all agree on. What are the things we all want to see happen that we find essential, and be willing to have a discussion and get to a point where we all can agree on a path forward. And for her to have considered that and thought about that process was important to me as well, because that's the only way as a nation, as a country, that we're going to fix the issues that desperately need to be fixed. But also as a community, the same thing. We've got to have high-paying jobs. We've got to provide a better quality of life for our families. Councilmember Rarey.
That may be well said and done, and it is an important thing to have, but the one thing that I emphasize, I kept bringing it back to economic development, and she kept going residential. And even when Councilmember Mendoza tried to get it back to economic development, she went to, so is she really listening? She may say that, using those words, but she didn't listen to our questions. And so is she really listening? So that was my concern with that. She does have the financial background. I'm just not sure that she's listening.
This is a question for staff. What kind of time frame are we tied to in order to fill these positions? I know that the first time we asked for applications, there were none. This time we had 4. And what kind of process are we tied to, time frame that we're tied to get this done in a timely manner? And if we don't have both positions filled tonight, then what are our options moving forward?
Great questions. I'm going to defer to Josh, who's been managing this project, and he'll have some great insights for you.
Hi, good evening, Mayor and council members. Thank you for your time this evening. So we're not necessarily tied to a particular deadline. We would like to keep the project moving. We've been working on this initiative. It's been about a year or so now, if not a little bit longer. And so the sooner that we create and seat the board and go through then really the next step would be to seat the board, go through the conflict of interest protocols, and then eventually approve a infrastructure financing plan, and then go through the state required public hearings to be able to finalize the plan and finalize the various actions. The sooner that comes online, the sooner the tool becomes available to the city and your economic development team to use to leverage development both in the Innovation Center and Brentwood Boulevard in the downtown EIFD. So really it's a council decision. Staff would be glad to support whatever decision comes out of this evening. I don't see a major business impact to the city should you decide to select one member or 2 members tonight. If necessary, we could certainly go out to put it out back to the public and see if there's additional interest. Additionally, we had one applicant who wasn't able to make it tonight, but should they possibly reapply, but this will be a council decision, and staff will be here to support and answer questions.
Could we start that process with just the one person on there and I mean, just get the ball rolling and then add the other person as?
Sure. So if we proceed as a city-only EIFD, we're required to have a 5-person board, is my understanding. So 3 council members and 2 members that are appointed from the public. So we'll check in with our EIFD consultant who wasn't available tonight. But my assumption would be we have to have a full seated 5-person board.
And I appreciate what Josh just said, but I think if you have a quorum, you can go ahead and start meeting while we're continuing a recruitment if that's the direction of the council.
That's what I was thinking too.
Can I clarify too, weren't there supposed to be 2 council members and 1 alternate?
Yes. The way it works is if the county participates, the 2 council members would stay on as permanent members and the alternate would essentially fall off. The same with the council's public appointed appointees.
Now, Mayor, I have a quick question.
Yes, sir.
Now, if we don't find another candidate, and if we go out there try and find more and we don't find it, is there any way that we could go back to the 2 or the 3 that we've already met with, or how does that work?
Well, the process, again, anyone's welcome to put in an application. That's how the process has worked up to this point.
But my question is, Mayor, is that we have 3 people that have already turned in the application, have gone through the process, and let's say nobody else applies for it, and let's say we don't like them either, can we still go back to those 2 individuals that we may have not moved forward, or the 3 individuals?
Is there an answer from legal or staff? I don't see that there would be a legal reason not to do that and have council can have some time to consider that. But I think it's important to move forward right now. Just to give this, like Josh said, this is a tool that's is important, and from the conversation right now, it appears that there's only one of the applicants that would have enough support from council to be appointed tonight. We can certainly, I can make the recommendation and take the vote, but. And I'm happy to do that, but for the sake of time, and I don't want to waste their time. I don't want to waste your time. Is council interested in opening this up again to see what further applicants we could find that might show interest? Okay. Sorry, there's so many people on here. I have to scroll across to see all the thumbs or the nodding heads. Well, then at this time, then I will recommend a vote to bring to council at this time for appointment to this commission, this board, the PFA, Mr. Lars Sandberg, as to be appointed, and that's my recommendation. Do I have a second?
I'll second that.
Okay.
And actually, just to clarify, given this process, there's no need for a second for this particular one. It's always welcome to have, but there's no requirement for this particular one because it's the mayor's recommendation. This is a little bit different than your normal procedures because you would normally go through each one of you to give your selections, but this is a council process. You can change that procedure, and it sounds to me, just listening to the discussion, that what the mayor just did would be meeting with the council's approval. And then with regard to Vice Mayor Rodriguez's question, there's nothing that precludes the council from requesting to reconsider someone who you've already met with. So that could happen. You're not required to do it, but you could do it if you wanted to. So at this point, the mayor's recommendation is on the floor regarding Mr. Sandberg, and it would be appropriate if the council wishes to take a vote on him tonight.
Okay, if it pleases the council, then I'm going to ask for a roll call vote on regarding this recommendation.
And I'm sorry, Mr. Mayor, one clarification here. I wanted to confirm with the council, and I should have done that when I was just speaking, that this is applying for both of the bodies, not just one of the two. So he would be the council's recommendation, your recommendation to be the primary representative on both of the bodies. All right. And just to clarify that, that's what the recommendation is of the mayor. Thank you.
That is, yes, thank you. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Okay. At this time then, I need a motion for adjournment.
So moved.
Okay, we have a first
Second.
and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye. We are adjourned and we'll move back to our regular council meeting Zoom room. I'll see you there.
Mayor, I'm gonna,
5 minutes.
yeah, I'm gonna need 5 minutes.
Okay, we will take a 5-minute recess and then move back. I do want to thank all of the applicants for their application for consideration. Thank you, council. We're adjourned for 5 minutes. Thank you. Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the February 8th, 2022 City Council Successor Agency IFA meeting of the City of Brentwood. And we do have a quorum at this time. If I could get a roll call from the City Clerk.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Here.
Councilmember Meyer?
Here.
Councilmember Rarey?
Here.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Here.
Mayor Bryant?
Here. At this time, if you could join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Okay. At this time, we will open public comments, and I will turn it to you, Margaret.
At this time, the public is permitted to address the City Council on items that are not on the agenda. Items listed under presentation, informational reports, are on the consent calendar. Requests for future agenda items, new requests. Please save your comments for any other items that are on the agenda for that part of the meeting when you'll have the opportunity to provide them. I received no written public comments on this item that were submitted to the City Clerk prior to the meeting. If you wish to speak under public comment, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature and I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. While we encourage your comments, state law prevents the City Council from discussing items that are not on their meeting agenda, and if appropriate, they'll have staff follow up on them. And I have 2 hands raised. Let me just get my timer screen up. I will start with Danny Dorman. Mr. Dorman, go ahead.
Great. Thank you very much. I wanted to put this on the record. Some of you, probably most of you already know what it is I'm calling about. It has to do with Shea Homes and their surprise of adding privacy fences as an option, an upgrade, somewhere in the neighborhood of $15,000 per resident. Now, I'm often critical of staff, and I am certainly critical of the city manager, but in this particular case, absolutely everyone I've spoken to in the city government had no idea that Shea was doing this. It was a lie of omission. And I know that in this particular case, I'm calling specifically about Kindred at Balfour. I know that is too late from a contractual legal standpoint. I'm hoping that something can be done, but I wanted to address this for future developers. Honestly, I'm surprised Sino hasn't done this sooner because it's brilliant. They stand to make about $600,000, $800,000 by putting people in the position of putting in their own fences. I had a call today, spoke with Eric, and he and one of his associates, they were the ones that went through the design phase with Shea. They had no knowledge. We have, and I mean the city, gave an indication that they would put fencing, that it was an assumption. So in closing, I don't know, again, I don't know if there's anything the city can do. I know the planning department last week asked a developer if they are actually putting in fences for the consumer. And honestly, I guess that's going to have to be a question that's asked to Shea and other developers. And yeah, that's it. I did want to thank again the city and the staff because they did do the due diligence to find out what was going on. No one was aware of this. Everyone assumed the same thing that I would say even you on the board tonight would assume. You're putting in a property, you're putting in a fence, a privacy fence, especially 55 and older. I'm really tired of seeing developers take advantage of seniors. Thank you very much for your time. I appreciate it.
Thank you. The next speaker is Cynthiana Todor. Cynthiana, go ahead.
Hello, thank you, Margaret, again, and thank you for giving me the opportunity to speak. I have 3 items that I would like to address for tonight. First one is related to a town hall that I heard is planned to discuss the issue of increasing homeless population in Brentwood. I would like to ask the organizer that this time around to invite decision makers from county level, since we understand from previous conversation and previous town hall on the unhoused, unsheltered people, we understand the money are being allocated at county level and not at a local level, such as city level as Brentwood. Would be nice to also have Supervisor Diane Burgess present so she can answer all questions and also possibly take back items to the board for this further discussion. I also would like to know if there's any report where residents can see the list of citations issued around the homeless encampments around Brentwood in conformity with Brentwood Municipal Code. I understand there are some legal restrictions and limitations imposed by the state, but I am hoping we can at least enforce our local laws, such as open containers, alcoholic beverages in public, drinking in public, public urination, garbage, and so on. And these are just few items from our municipal code that are listed on the city website. So I'm hoping, they're listed there for the fact that we can actually enforce it at local level. So I'm not really sure where to look for this data, but if at all possible to have someone direct me there, I would really appreciate it. The third item, it sounds kind of funny, but it's not. But I do feel like a club is forming at City Hall and its members have one thing in common. They were fired from their previous city jobs. I'm talking about the newly hired economic development director who just recently got fired from City of Tacoma because he berated female employees. And then also he turned around and sued the hand that fed him, City of Tacoma, and got a hefty settlement from the City of Tacoma. Why are we opening ourselves to this risk? This could very well happen to our city. I did not, if this new employee doesn't like the way things go here. I did not look into the new assistant city manager situation to see if he shared the same traits as our city manager and economic development director. On top of that, talking about the economic development director, his vision is not fit for Brentwood. He's promoting economic growth through residential development as a vehicle, and a clear example is the historic brewery district in town.
The speaker's time was up. The next speaker is Jeremy, followed by Rod. Jeremy, go ahead.
Yeah, hi, thank you. I'm also wanted to just speak up about the concerns that I'm seeing in respect to the increase in homeless population within the city of Brentwood. I know there's been efforts and discussions around some of the things that are going on to be able to try and help with this. And I know that we're being told that there are certain things that just simply can't be done and because of legal reasons and whatnot, and that's fine. I respect that. But one thing I have, and I know this isn't necessarily something that's going to be answered in this forum, but I have friends and family that live in other cities throughout the Bay Area, places like Danville, Los Gatos, Los Altos, some of these other towns that have comparable population sizes to Brentwood. And what I always hear from them, which is interesting, is they always just say, we don't really see that problem in our area. And I'm very curious as number one to why, and then number two, I'm also interested in knowing or thinking, and maybe this is for our city managers, is perhaps reaching out to some of the leaders within these areas and asking, what are you doing? What is it that you're putting in place that's stopping this type of situation from occurring? Now, of course, I want to be respectful of the homeless population for whatever their situations are. But on the flip side, what I do know is that this has a tendency to get worse, right, as time goes by, especially if really nothing looks like is really being done. So I'm just hoping maybe we could reach out to some of the other cities within the area, find out what they're doing, and maybe see if there's a solution that we can come up with that benefits everybody. Appreciate the time. Thanks.
Thank you. The next speaker is Rod. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. Well, in regards to what the last speaker said, it was just it was grave compared to probably what I'm talking about. So I wanted to thank that person for coming and speaking. I want to talk a little bit more about what Cynthiana was talking about, since she wasn't able to complete what she was saying. I believe she was referring to the new economic development director going with residential development in a brewery zone, which was supposed to be for commercial development, as a way of doing economic development. And I don't think that's the way that we need to go here. I do also have a grave concern about hiring somebody who fired their previous employer because the employer fired them for being disrespectful in the workplace. Everybody has the right to be comfortable where they work, and full stop. Nobody should be harassing or belittling or making cute comments. And so I feel like hiring a person with this record, whether you believe the accusations or not, puts the city in a precarious position. I mean, if this guy comes in and starts mistreating our staff, he's going to have to go, or our staff would rightfully sue us. But if he goes, he's going to sue us, and he might win. So why would we put ourselves in a situation like that? There has to be somebody who doesn't have this cloud hanging over them. And this gentleman certainly, if he is a gentleman, certainly received a large enough settlement that he could take some time to think about what he wants to do with his life before re-entering the public realm. I just don't understand it. Like I said, it's damned if you do and damned if you don't. If he starts acting up here, what are you going to do? You're going to wait for the staff to sue you, or are you going to fire him and wait for him to sue you? It just seems very ill-advised. I'm just going by what I read in the papers, but surely there was somebody more qualified, or we could just have left the position open for a little longer. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no additional hands raised.
Thank you. At this time, yes.
Mayor, do you think you can ask staff like when that homeless town hall is?
Absolutely.
People asked about it. Yes, thank you.
Let's close public comment first, and then we'll do that. This time we will close public comment, and now staff, if you could respond to Councilmember Mendoza and the caller's request for information.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. We have not yet set a date for that homeless town hall meeting. It was expected to be closer to the end of February when it was initially discussed, but the police department has not yet scheduled that. So we will work on getting that scheduled soon, and it'll probably be in March now at this point, and we'll broadcast that broadly.
Councilmember Mendoza, did that answer the question?
Yeah, that's good. And maybe at that town hall we can have some benchmarking best practices from other cities, like they meant. Just responding to the caller as well.
Thank you. At this time, then, we will move into presentations. The presentation A1 is a proclamation proclaiming February as Cancer Prevention Month, and I will read the proclamation. Whereas cancer remains the second leading cause of death in the United States, and whereas many Americans know the distress of receiving a cancer diagnosis, and millions more who've watched loved ones courageously fight this disease and too often succumb to it, and whereas progress has been made against this disease through a commitment to preventing cancer, improving treatments, the delivery of care, and finding a cure, and whereas there are steps that can be taken to lower risk for many kinds of cancer, and whereas tobacco use remains the top cause of cancer deaths in the United States, and by quitting smoking and limiting exposure to secondhand smoke, we can reduce cancer risk, save lives, and whereas eating healthy, getting regular physical activity, limiting alcohol consumption, and reducing sun exposure when the sun is at its peak can also help reduce the risk of getting cancers. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Brentwood does hereby recognize February 2022 as Cancer Prevention Month and encourages residents to increase awareness about cancer prevention through living a healthier lifestyle. Dated this 8th day of February 2022. The second proclamation, item A2, is a proclamation regarding proclaiming February as American Heart Month, and this is the proclamation. Whereas over 874,000 Americans died of cardiovascular disease in 2019, according to the American Heart Association's Heart Disease and Stroke Statistics 2022 update. And whereas the American Heart Association is encouraging people to reclaim control of their mental and physical well-being after 2 difficult years of the COVID-19 pandemic, and whereas caring for yourself and others are great ways to counter the pandemic's heavy toll on health, and whereas many of the risk factors for heart disease, including high blood pressure, diabetes, and obesity, are also related to brain diseases such as stroke, Alzheimer's disease, and other dementias, and whereas engaging in regular physical activity, maintaining a healthy diet and weight, managing stress, avoiding smoking and vaping, and getting quality sleep each night can all reduce the risk of heart disease and help people live longer, healthier lives. Now, therefore, be it proclaimed that the City Council of the City of Brentwood does hereby recognize February 2022 as American Heart Month and encourages residents to increase awareness about cardiovascular disease and their own heart health, dated this 8th day of February 2022. At this time, we will move into informational reports from council, and I'll turn it to Councilmember Mendoza.
Hello. Since the last time we met, I had another meeting regarding the food truck night that they want to do here in Brentwood. So I met with a food truck owner and a business owner. I attended the League of California Cities Latino Caucus, Cal Cities meeting, East Bay Division meeting, the California elected meeting where the major talk was around the housing element. So Alexis, I'm going to be giving you a call. County meeting around community conversations, homeless program models. So there is a lot of meetings out there that residents can attend around the homeless. Meeting with Amy, the new director of the Downtown Brentwood Coalition. So she's really excited to get on board and help our businesses downtown, which goes all the way up Brentwood Boulevard to Sand Creek. So exciting that there's going to be someone there to help them. And that is it.
Thank you. Councilmember Meyer.
Before I share what I've done, I just wanted to, for the sake of transparency, I may be periodically turning my camera off tonight. I'm dealing with the healing of a partially collapsed lung and some severe pain with breathing. So if I turn my camera off, it's not because I'm texting or reading emails or anything. It's because I'm standing up and trying to take some full breaths and get through this. So to continue, I attended the Cal Cities East Bay Division meeting, took part in the final day of the Cal Cities new mayors and council members coffee chat in my role as first vice president, attended the virtual Choice and Aging nonprofit fundraiser and provided a video in support of a compilation recognizing the work of Dr. Sarah Levin, Contra Costa County Deputy Public Health Officer, and the work that she's done during the pandemic. And I was a panelist for the Contra Costa Elections Division Encouraging Future Leaders event. And Margaret was also a panelist to help people understand the process for filing papers, etc. And I have to say she was phenomenal, as she always is, represented the city very well and was a perfect expert for this particular panel. Thank you.
Councilmember Rarey?
Yes, thank you. Since the last time we met, I attended the Cal Cities East Bay Division. There was an expert on redistricting. The Cal Cities Public Safety Policy Committee, I met with staff regarding what was important to our city, one of which was being able to hire quality police officers because of the different laws that have been passed. It's getting harder and harder for us to find officers to come on board, as well as the shoplifting that's going on. Those are a couple of the concerns. Homelessness is what, fire capacity, both wildfire and within our city. All of those are things that I discussed with them. I spoke with Doug. I spoke with a member of the Native Sons of the Golden West Historical Preservation Foundation regarding a grant for the John Marsh Historic Trust. They sent an application to us, so we will be applying for that. I attended the mayor's conference where there was an update on BART, and while BART is back up to its pre-pandemic ridership, I did then afterwards see that they are looking at probably coming back to everybody to charge them more money because of the pandemic. They also talked about they're testing out new gates at different locations along the different platforms, and they will be retrofitting those. And once they find out what is the best gate to use so that they don't get people jumping them to skip paying fares, then they'll go back into contracting that out and put them at all the stations. There is the PAL Barbecue King Cook-Off this Sunday, Super Bowl Sunday, at Harvest Park Bowl, and it's from 10 to 3 p.m. So come on down, and it's $25 per ticket to get the best barbecue around, or $50 for a family of 4. And you get to go up and you got to get your barbecue chicken ribs tri-tip straight from the competitors. And then I also finished working on the John Marsh Historic Trust website and got that up and going. And for those who are interested, it's johnmarshhouse.com. So there's lots of information about John Marsh and his contributions to the state of California and his first that he accomplished across the United States, as well as history about the Native Americans and the Marsh Creek State Historic Park, as well as other items that are on there. So be sure to go and check that out. And that's all I have to report. Thank you.
Thank you. Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
At this time, Mayor, I don't have anything to report out. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Since the last time we met, I attended the mayor's conference also, and since Councilmember Rarey did such an outstanding job bringing the information that was given, I will save us all time. So thank you. I also attended the Planning Commission swearing in of our new planning commissioners. I'm very excited that our Planning Commission is going to continue to do an outstanding job for us in the future. Also, I attended the Don Huntington Memorial Service. Many in the community know that Don Huntington, who was an integral part of our community for many years, a lot of people called him the serial hugger. I don't know of anyone that did not love him. He was a genuine, compassionate man, very talented, founder of the 110 Degrees magazine here in town. And it was a really wonderful opportunity to hear stories that not everyone might know of him. I also attended the Airport Land Use Commission meeting regarding some regulations at the Concord Airport, but also some conversation regarding what might be happening at the Byron Airport regarding State Route 239. I do want to let our community know that there's going to be a lot of talk about State Route 239, and it is on the fast track, which means realistically it's not funded. But there are processes, so it's not going to be happening within the next year or two. If you're really excited about having that completed, that's probably not going to be the speed that it happens at. But there could be some real relief from traffic on Vasco Road and for the residents in that part of unincorporated Brentwood as well as Byron. I also met with 3 different businesses that are in town regarding some growth that they're wanting to do and some ideas for community involvement they're wanting to bring in town as well. And I also had an opportunity to spend some time with our new assistant city manager, talking to him about his vision of our community, what he sees, and I know that council will have an opportunity to meet with him as well. I don't have any further to report at this time. So we'll move into the consent calendar. And do I have, I would like to pull, no, you know what? It was already answered.
Actually, can I, in having some conversations with residents of Vista Dorado, understanding that there's some updates in here, but there are not enough for the sake of full disclosure of what's happening with the parks and all the delays and the developers' delays. And I would really like to ask staff, given what's on the agenda right now, to give us some information about how can we hold the developer to the timeline, what the timeline is, what else do we have going on behind the scenes that they aren't aware of, because there's a lot of concern about how long those parks have taken to come forward or to fruition without a lot of communication. And so I'm hoping someone can give us an update on that.
Okay, so
and to find out how we can have like the current timeline and how it can be held.
Okay, so we are going to pull item C5 for discussion. Any further items to be pulled, or do I have a motion regarding it?
You know, C4 didn't look like it had any parks in it, but C5 kind of looked like it had parks in it, but did they have parks? And it was a question I asked as well. So I think, I mean, we may do a quick approval of C4, but I'd like to be able to ask staff that question.
Okay, would you like to pull C4 for that conversation?
Yes, I would.
Okay, so do I have a motion regarding the other items on consent?
I'll make a motion to adopt consent calendar items C1, 2, 3, 6, 7, and 8.
Okay, we have a first.
Second.
A second. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Okay, we'll go to item C4. Councilmember Rarey.
Yeah, my only question is, since I did ask staff what hardscape was done and what related to parks and didn't get an answer, is there anything in C4 that is related to parks? Didn't look like it, but.
Yes, good evening, Mayor and council members. So I can try to answer that question. So C4 and C5 are actually the public works, infrastructure, utility, sidewalks improvements, and neither one actually has to do with the park improvements. But I can give a brief update if that's within. I'll see if Damien cuts me off. But basically, the park improvements came forward in. Here comes Damien already. So let me know if I can give a quick update. Damien?
Yes, thank you. Thank you, Bruce. A brief update is fine. It's just as parks were not the focus of this agenda item, there really can't be a council discussion on it. It's just a brief update from the Parks and Rec director on a first C4, and then after that, then he can go to C5.
Okay, sure. So regarding C4 and Councilmember Rarey's question, these improvements do not include the parks. The park improvements are separate from C4 and are actually part of a subdivision agreement that has outlined the improvements of the parks, where several of these parks are scheduled to be completed this spring by end of March, early April.
So my understanding is either C4 or C5 that that the vineyards of the park, vineyards at Marsh Creek are able to get 5 building permits because of hardscape. So if it has nothing to do with hardscape in a park, why are they getting 5 building permits?
This particular item in C4 is about the public works improvements in this particular area. It has nothing to do with improvements within
Okay. All right. So I'll move to approve C4.
We have a first.
Second. I'll second that.
A first and a second. A roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. At this time, we'll go to item C5. Councilmember Meyer.
And I kind of already said what I was looking for, and I completely understand the restrictions around what you're allowed to share. But seeing this on the consent item, I'm hearing questions about what does this mean and what is this doing for us, basically. And I'm just hoping that we can get some sort of an update about how we're going to keep to whatever timeline that there is and what the timeline might be.
Yes, I understand that for the parks, and we are moving forward with a subdivision agreement and holding the developer accountable for what is in that subdivision agreement for the parks.
So if I were to request an actual timeline, I would have to make that a separate agenda item?
Yes, that would have to be a separate agenda item, and Damien can weigh in.
I guess if it's just an update to what the current timeline is, that's just a brief question, a brief answer could be given. But if there's going to be a council discussion on that, then that would require a separate agenda item. So
I don't need a discussion. I was just hoping for some sort of an update. Yeah.
So there's a current timeline that shows that 3 parks, including Alta Park, Monte Rosa Park, and Aspen Park, are all to be completed around the end of March and in early April. So that shows a little bit more about the timeline regarding those parks.
So, and if we're not doing council discussion, Councilmember Mendoza's got her hand raised.
I just, when it comes to the timeline, my only question is, can you just send a memo with the timeline and the dependencies on it? Because I think that's the biggest question from what I'm hearing from them is, what are the dependencies? You get permits for houses and you complete what? So if we could just get all of that, I think that would take care of it.
Yes, I'd be happy to send that out. And it was outlined in the December staff report as well, that as part of the subdivision agreement.
Those are pretty lengthy.
So my question is the same for this as it was for the last one. If these are hardscapes have been done, I thought the hardscapes that they were getting the permits for was related to hardscapes within a park. Are there any parks within C5?
Not within C5.
Okay, so I guess my question would be to Tim then is, why are they getting 5 building permits if they have not finished the hardscapes for the parks?
So the subdivision improvement agreement the council approved December 21st laid out exactly what we've done, that they get 5 building permits if they complete certain milestones, putting in certain hardscape. So these are all the curb, gutters, sidewalks, etc. And that's what was required to get these 5 building permits. Other building permits are tied to certain park completions. So that's all pending, and that should all be wrapped up in the next few months.
But just to clarify that the hardscape in the parks is separate from C4 and C5. The hardscape in the parks is tied to the subdivision agreement thresholds tied to the permits. That is separate from items C4 and C5. That has to do with the public works infrastructure improvements.
So I'm looking at the December 21st, and while I see the place where it talks about building permit issuance for the parks, I'm not seeing it for other things. So how are we giving them any building permits if it's not tied to the parks? The whole thing was nothing goes out unless the parks get done, whether it's hardscape or whatever. And so why are we giving them?
Great question. It is tied to those improvements in the park, but I can send out a separate memo stating specifically what these thresholds define. I don't know if I should go too far down this road because it's not on the agenda of C4 and C5, but I'll be happy to send out a memo with an update on that.
I think that'd be most appropriate. We really are moving into discussion of this item, of items that aren't really on the agenda.
Okay, I was told that they would be getting 5 permits, and so I guess maybe we continue this and this item until we can get an answer on this, because I don't want 5 permits to be given to them because it was all based on the parks, not doing other work.
So to clarify, those 5 permit threshold based on the hardscape that was done had to do with the park, but that's not a part, that hardscape is not part of the items in C4 or C5. So that threshold and the thresholds in those parks is independent of C4 and C5 this evening.
Like Councilwoman Murray is saying, can we continue this, come back with a timeline in the dependencies? When did we agree to these dependencies? And then we can vote, okay, you met the requirements, but your packet is insufficient in educating me as to why we are voting when I don't know the history of it. And you and I had a meeting about the parks, and I thought it was they needed to get these parks done and getting permits. And like Councilmember Rarey is saying, they didn't get the parks done. So I agree with her. Let's continue it, come back with a more robust agenda item that we can discuss, and then we'll move forward. I don't know.
Now, I think that if this has absolutely nothing to do with those 5 permits, I'm okay with the C4 and C5 because it doesn't have it. And I don't know why it was brought up that they're receiving 5 permits in the one-on-one discussion with the city manager. It wasn't a question that I had asked. It was a question that was given, or it was an answer that was given to me that they would be receiving 5 permits for doing this. And it is.
Well, since you said that, I was giving you 2 updates. One was about the agenda item tonight, and one about a concurrent thing that's occurring where certain hardscape was put in place, and that authorized the building permits. So I may have conflated those issues, but they're 2 separate issues. Okay. And both are consistent with the subdivision agreement that was approved.
Okay.
So sorry for that.
But do you think it's worth it that if we're voting on something, we understand the history? Like,
yeah, what you're voting on tonight is that.
Now I'm even more confused. So I would like to know, when did we say you can have these 5 permits when you complete this work? Like, when did I say yay, yes?
December 21st.
So that's in there specifically, like this area, and it's not.
And it has nothing, from what they said, it has nothing to do with C4 and C5.
Yeah, these are just where inspectors have certified that the improvements they put in meet the city standards, and you're just signing off on a notice of completion that the work is done and the staff have confirmed the work is complete. And
so the other confusion was when I sent the message off to you for clarification of what, if in C4 and C5, can you tell me exactly what the hardscapes are? You told me that Joe would get back to me next week with those. So for me, that was very confusing. That meant that there was hardscapes that were done in C4 and C5, because that was the question I asked, was what was done in C4 and C5 for parks.
So I think for me, having pulled the item, I think what I would really like to see is just what we're saying, kind of a deeper explanation, a little bit more history. I am ready to move this one forward because I feel like it's not going to go anywhere beyond what we've done.
I have one more question before I vote on it. One more question. Is there any other, what else like this, what else has to happen for the next permit? I guess I'm confused because I thought it was parks. So somehow or another, it wasn't relayed, appropriately, but what's the next round of permits for this development? Is it dependent on the park?
The landscaping was supposed to have been completed by January 31st, which hasn't been done yet.
And if I can,
I'm bringing up a future agenda item at the end.
Okay.
Okay, I got you.
In that case, thank you, Councilmember Rarey. I move to approve this item, C5.
Second.
We have a first and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Okay, we'll move into business items. Item D1 pertains to a proposed mural in the Civic Center parking garage. The council will consider approving an MOU for the project and authorizing administrative and budgeting steps necessary to allow the mural to be installed. And Chris Farrell will present on this item. Chris.
Good evening, Mayor and City Council. I'm excited to bring some fun into the meeting tonight. I guess recreation always brings the fun, but this one's extra special. So I'm going to be introducing Liberty High's Public Art Design Academy. As you know, every year they come to us with a project. It's a great partnership. This year, the project will be in the Civic Center, right in between the parking garage and the City Hall building. So without further ado, I will toss it over to the students. And when they are done with the presentation, both staff and students will be available to answer any questions. And without further ado, here are the PADA students.
I feel like this is ado. This is a little more ado.
Maybe with a little further ado.
Okay.
Do you want us to share our screen?
Please, that would be great.
Thank you. You guys can see our share screen, right? Okay.
Yes, we can.
Good evening, City Council, and welcome to our 2021-2022 Senior City Project. My name is Jasmine Fierro, Abigail Ward-Haddon, and Michelle Salgado. Our goal is to create a place for the community to take photos, whether it's senior photos or it being our community enjoying the downtown Brentwood. We want everyone to interact with our mural. The project site is in a recessed area located on the southwest side of the south parking garage stairwell.
In these images, you will see the location of the mural in relation to the parking garage. When standing in City Park and facing the south parking garage stairwell, the yellow arrows direct you to the location of the mural.
If you usually park in the parking garage and use the breezeway to access City Hall, City Park, or the community center, the mural will be located on the left. This image shows the wall measurements. The wall is 15 feet tall by 10 feet wide, totaling 150 square feet. Our goal was to create a mural that represents diversity as well as unity. We strive to create a beautiful display in City Hall with not only beauty but functionality in mind, along with teamwork throughout the PATA seniors. We chose to use the allium flower in our design because it is a symbol of unity, prosperity, and patience.
For our inspiration, we decided to use the allium flower. Alliums are native to California. They bloom in the summer and are overall a great representation of California. Since one allium ball can sprout multiple flowers at once, they are naturally represent unity. They are slow to bloom, which then symbolizes patience, and they also represent how much Brentwood has been able to prosper over the last coming years. While working on this design, we referenced a variety of mosaics to use when planning color placements, as well as the beautiful sunsets California offers us. Our design is meant to not only be beautiful, but functional. Our interactive scene gives viewers the opportunity to be transported into a fantastical world. Stand beside or in front of the mural to take pictures with giant alliums and pose with butterflies, which are native to Brentwood. On the left, as you can see, we explored a variety of color combinations before deciding on the final colors shown to the right. We wanted hues that would create a calm and tranquil atmosphere by using shades one would experience as the sun is just breaking in on the horizon for a new day. We believe these hues will bring people's pictures to life with the calming yet happy-go colors. Through this design, we want people to come together as a whole, no matter race or nationality, and you'll be accepted in Brentwood no matter who you are. This design is meant to remind people to have a little patience with one another and show a little grace.
In this image, you can see the design superimposed on the wall. We plan to create the mural from cut glass, which will be fired to round over any sharp edges. The background will be constructed with horizontal tiles to contrast the larger full-size tiles of the back of the objects in the foreground. Since this mural is so close to the parking garage, the PATA seniors, the 2021 PATA seniors created, want to bring some of those elements into our design as well. To the right of the mural, there'll be a plaque that includes a description of the mural.
This is the side view from the breezeway exiting the parking garage. As you can see, we have photoshopped in a model. The model's height comes in at 6 foot and 2 inches. We hope this gives you a more accurate depiction of the scale and height of the mural.
The estimated budget will be $10,425. The majority of the budget will go to glass tiles. We decided to use glass tiles for all of our designs because there's a variety of colors to choose from. They're relatively durable when used in mosaics, and they can be cleaned easily if vandalized with markers or paints.
Thank you for listening to our idea for our mural. Do you guys have any questions?
Are there any questions of the PATA students at this time? Councilmember Mendoza.
I might have missed it, but what's your timeline for it to be done? Sorry.
We would like to start the mural as soon as we can, but we do hope for it to be done early June.
Thank you.
Councilmember Meyer.
I love it. The butterflies I'm curious about, are those native to California, the ones that you chose to represent here?
The butterflies are from the mural that the 2021 senior PATA created, and we wanted to have their elements with our design since they're so close together.
Perfect. Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any further questions of our PATA students at this time or staff?
No, I just want to say thank you for your presentation. It was well done, and really looking forward to seeing that mural. I think it's going to be really nice.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for your presentation. It's going to be exciting to see happen. I can't wait to see you all down here working and making this happen should this get approved tonight. So if there are no further questions of staff, we'll open public comment on this item, and I'll turn to you, Margaret.
I received no written public comments on this item. If you wish to speak, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature. I'll call upon your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person, and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. And I think I need to stop their sharing. And I see no hands raised. Oh, hold on. We do have one hand raised. I'll go ahead and call on Rod. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. I just wanted to say really quickly that looks like a beautiful piece of public art. It's really nice, and I look forward to seeing it when it's done, and thank you so much to the artist.
Thank you.
Thank you. I have no additional hands raised.
Okay, thank you. So at this time, we will close public comment, move into council discussion. Councilmember Mendoza.
I want to say I think it's gorgeous. The reason I asked you about when it's going to be done, because I'm sure you're going to have a huge long line come prom time. I'm sure you're going to have people taking pictures there. And I also love that you coordinated this one with the other one that's in the parking garage, the entrance and exit. So great job. It's beautiful.
Thank you.
Councilmember Meyer.
Yes, thank you. The presentation was really fantastic. I love that you had a model there and explained his height for scale. I think that's really great because I was trying to picture where a family might fit into that given the height of it. So really helpful. I love the colors, not just the ones that tie in with the other design, but also the ones that represent the sunset. And you guys just did a beautiful job. And at the unity part of it, it's fantastic. Thank you so much. I can't wait to see it.
Thank you.
Councilmember Rarey.
I have to agree with everything that's already been said. The fact that you went through and described why you use the different elements was important. It wasn't something that you just said, oh, yeah, let's just throw some flowers out there. And so I thought that was important. And it does give a new perspective to the giant allium, because there are giant alliums out there, but this gives a whole new perspective to that. I think matching it between the garage and this, I was wondering why we went with butterflies again. Now that you've talked about it, I understand why butterflies were added to this one. I think you guys presented well, and I look forward to the day that we can do the ribbon cutting on it. Thank you.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez.
Like I said earlier, I think you guys did a wonderful job. Looking forward to seeing the mural. And I think like Councilmember Mendoza says, I think a lot of students in the area are going to enjoy taking pictures there for their graduations and for all their events. So once again, great job and great presentation.
Thank you.
I want to just echo what the other council members have said and the Vice Mayor. I have a question for you. How many of you plan on coming back to Brentwood after you graduate to live here?
I do.
Okay, well, here's what I'm asking. Whether you come back to live or visit family, this is going to be something that you can really take pride in and show the community and your friends that you might bring back here what you were able to accomplish. And you know, your talent, your ability, your vision is really inspiring, and it is very beautiful, and I'm excited about it as well. So having said that, do we have a motion on this item?
I move to approve this item.
Second.
As detailed in the staff report.
We have a first and a second. Roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
It is unanimous. Thank you for your commitment to do this. Thank you, Chris. Thank you, Pata. And we're looking forward to this. So thank you. Keep up the good work.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you for this opportunity.
So at this time, we'll move into item D2. It pertains to consideration of the Brentwood Neighborhood Committee's duties, goals, and guidelines. And Bruce Mulder will present on the item. Bruce?
Good evening again, Mayor and Council. Actually, Chris is prepared to give an introduction to this item, so I will turn it back over to Chris.
Hi, Council. So this is the second time, actually, I think third time, we're revisiting this topic. Hopefully, we've all had some time to kind of think further about it. The Brentwood Neighborhood Committee itself had actually started the idea of kind of looking at their guidelines and thinking about repurposing for a variety of reasons. One, there was a kind of change of a lot of the people who had been on the committee for a really long time had decided to leave the committee and go on and do other things in the city. And new folks came on board and they just had other interests and they were really wanting to explore kind of smaller neighborhood type of events, more of like welcoming committees and those kind of things, which would be a little shift in the guidelines. So as they were talking about it, we did bring it to council and kind of asked for your input. And since that time, council members have come up with a variety of different ideas. Some are similar to what the current BNC members have been brainstorming, and that's kind of that small hometown feel kind of events. And other ideas have come up over the past year in meetings that are a completely different way that the BNC could move. So we're bringing it forward to the council again to say, what would you like the direction to be? Are the current guidelines what you would like to see from the Brentwood Neighborhood Committee, or would you like to explore options and have it move in a different direction? So I'm here obviously to answer any questions you have about the current committee, or if you need some historical, reference, I'm happy to answer any questions, but really this is a council discussion for you to direct staff on how you would like to see this committee move forward.
Councilmember Meyer?
So discussion part later, but for a question, when I met with Tim and Damien, I asked if there might be a way to reach out to, I know at least Pittsburgh has a community-driven committee, and I wondered if there might be some things that we can pull from that as far as what they do versus what we do. And I don't know if there was a chance to do that. We did talk about that being something to, as one option to look at, if that happened.
I have not talked to other cities, but I don't want to speak for the city manager's office.
I do recall the request, but did not pass that on. So no, we're not prepared to discuss what other cities have done, but really looking tonight for what does this city want to do with these very dedicated residents who want to volunteer their time and help assist in any way that you see best.
Yeah, I understand that. I just was hoping to have some kind of idea about what other cities are doing in a similar kind of committee for the sake of sharing of ideas and building on that. Okay.
Any further questions of staff at this time? I apologize. I have to move my screen to see everyone. Okay.
Can I just one quick question? The committee itself, like, what are they? Because they're the ones doing the job. So, what are they most interested in doing? Have they expressed wanting to do something outside of the events that we already have?
So in full disclosure, we're down to 3 committee members at this point.
Okay.
And they don't necessarily have one concrete path forward. I think the thing that is the common thread between the 3 of them is that they want to keep that hometown feel. Like that's the phrase that keeps coming up. How they accomplish that, they've brainstormed a few different ideas, anything from having the events, instead of these larger scale events that happen in City Park, having smaller events that are in the neighborhood parks. So it would be really about bringing neighborhoods together more than bringing like the entire city together. So they've brainstormed little things and really easy things. Maybe it's just come to the park today and we're going to have a joint basketball game or arts and craft activities. They've really touched on the fact that new neighbors move in and there's not necessarily that conduit to bring them into the neighborhood. And so working on, I call it like the welcome wagon is what, my mom used to be on when I was a kid growing up. So they brought up those kinds of ideas. So I would say that's a similar in mission to what their current guidelines are, but the actual task would be a little bit scaled down in that they wouldn't be responsible for these huge citywide events. They'd be these smaller, neighbors meeting neighbor type of events.
Okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
So really quick question. Oh, was there somebody else, Mayor? I'm sorry.
Councilmember Meyer.
Okay. In continuing that question, so the city and the chamber have pretty much taken over doing some of these larger scale events they were involved with them in the past, right?
Correct. And the BNC's role in the larger events, in some cases, it was their idea and they started the event. But obviously the scale of those events now, they were volunteers at the event, but they have really shifted the main responsibility of putting those events together sits with city staff now. So their role has just changed over the years as those events have grown. And so I think that was part of the catalyst of them wanting to maybe look at new goals also, is that they started these events, but now they've gone so big that they're kind of not what they work on anymore. They come and they volunteer at the events, but they're so big that this committee couldn't certainly handle the whole implementation of these larger events. As you mentioned, it takes us and the chamber and the downtown coalition, like it takes many partners. It's not just this committee could accomplish that. So that's why I think they started to focus on what are things that just us as our community that we could really accomplish, meaning they could plan it, they could be the ones to run it, they could really be responsible for the whole event. So I think that's kind of where the catalyst for change was like, we volunteer at these events, but it's not really our thumbprint anymore. It's kind of outgrown the reins of the BNC.
Yeah. So, and just to clarify, because I know some of these bigger events we're talking about that they were involved in the past were very downtown driven, but this group reflects the entire city, parks throughout the city, neighbors throughout the city, all of that. Yes.
So currently in the guidelines, there's nothing that dictates that they have to be from different neighborhoods. In the past, at different junctures in BNC's history, there were guidelines, much like how the council is districted. BNC was districted, and so there were so many representatives from each neighborhood. But currently, that is not in the guidelines. So there are people currently that live throughout the city, but there's no guideline that says they couldn't all come from the same neighborhood. Yeah. So that is also something that you could change if you wanted to move in that direction.
I mean, as far as what your opinion would be on that, because we have had some struggles with recruitment for some of these committees. So I personally don't feel like it would have to be all spread throughout in district kind of form, as long as we have the commitment that everyone is looking at, events and parks that are throughout the city, not just one area, for example. Is that sound fair to you?
Absolutely. I think BNC has been a little bit easier to recruit in the past in that I think it doesn't have the same level of kind of responsibility. They're not responsible for a budget, or they're not passing policy, or it's been more of kind of like a fun low end responsibility. And so it has been easier for us to recruit. So one, I don't know that we have that challenge. But also I do think that they are at least those that have participated within the last 2 years or so are thinking about the whole city. So they would be more than willing to, run an activity that's not in their necessarily neighborhood, one across town. I don't see that being a problem at all.
Okay, and then my final question is, have we ever had representation from the high schools? Like a student representative for the sake of, for example, doing activities at a park that are more youth-driven?
Not in the BNC. Clearly, the Youth Commission has done events, and there could be a partnership between the BNC and the Youth Commission to do something jointly. But historically, youth have not been involved in the BNC.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, if there are no further questions of staff on this item, we'll open public comment. Margaret?
I received no written public comments on this item. If you wish to speak on this item, please raise your hand using the Zoom feature and I'll call your name if provided and unmute you to speak. Remarks are limited to 3 minutes per person and your microphone will be muted after the timer has expired. And I do have one hand raised. I'll call on Rod. Rod, go ahead.
Yes, thank you. So looking at this, I see that the neighborhood committee currently does events, basically, and these events are great events. I think they're doing an excellent job, and they're important. They build community, a sense of community, and they're fun. But I've also have long had a thought that we should have a neighborhood committee, whether it's this one or another one, that would be people that were really representative of their neighborhoods for purposes of planning. So, for example, the neighborhoods that were around Goodwill, it would have been nice if they had, a little bit more of leadership, although the leadership they did end up with was excellent. But if there were people that were in touch with their neighborhoods, and when these new projects come around, that might be something that the neighbors would be concerned about, the city would have somebody to touch base with immediately without having to send out, the flyers and hope somebody showed up to some meeting that the developer threw. And in that way, they could foster community participation. They could get people more involved. We could have more public engagement. I think we saw one of the benefits of public engagement today with Mr. Sandberg coming forward for the committee assignment. We have a lot of high quality people in Brentwood, and many of them commute. They're not able to engage as much because they're on the road. They spend what little time they have in the evening with their families, and it would be nice if there was a way, block parties, ways for people to get together and talk about things about the city so that they understand what the city is doing, and kind of a liaison between the city and the neighborhoods, and just as an organization that would foster community engagement. And again, not to take away from the mission of doing community events and things. I think those things are all very important too, but I just think that there's a whole other element that's not being addressed that could be. Thank you.
Thank you. I have no other hands raised.
Thank you. So at this time, we will close public comment and move into council discussion. Councilmember Rarey.
So Rod kind of hit the nail on the head. I was an original member of the very first Brentwood Advisory Neighborhood Committee. The reason why it was bank is because you could bank on us to get it done. That was our little slogan there. We were chosen because the committee, we had Greg Robinson on there. We had Annette Beckstrand. We had Barbara Bonningson and Kim and who else was there? Madeline Juan Krebs. We were all very involved in the community. We were the fastest growing city in the state of California at that time. And because of that, things became problematic. People were having issues, and so they created a committee that we worked for our neighborhoods. I mean, we were the people that the neighbors already came to, and they kind of helped us out in that respect. If there was racing down somebody's road and the people said, let's get a speed bump in there, we've been given a list of the different department heads of who we should be contacting for different issues. We try to resolve the problem so it wouldn't become problematic for the city council. And we were taken out on tours to learn more about the city. We did start the Christmas tree lighting program. We had the home of the month because we wanted people to take pride in home ownership. And so we were out, is it monthly or quarterly? No, it was quarterly, but we would have 4 different areas of the town that would receive these. And this allowed people to be able to have pride because their grass was always so green and cut the perfect length, or they had the beautiful flowers in their front yard all the time, or whatever it was about their home that just made it shine. And so it was pride in home ownership. And when people saw that, look, they got that sign out there, then they'd say, wow, they're being recognized for making their house look presentable to the rest of the neighborhood, which then kind of helped other neighbors to want to achieve that as well. I know one of my neighbors did, and everybody's like, well, how did you get that? Why did you get that? And I got up and I spoke about this when they were changing the name over from bank to BNC. I was disappointed in the route that the organization took to become hostesses of town events instead of helping the neighborhood. And as we know, we've got a lot of people who come to the city regarding different issues. They want to try to get it resolved. And this is something that if we had a committee like that they could help resolve issues before they become problematic for the city council. And we were from all over the town. We tried not to get people in the same areas of town so that you would have one person heading out the entire area around Bristow, or, in my case, it was the southeast side of Brentwood that I kind of represented. And so I think there's a place for that. Whether the rest of the council does or not, that's to be heard. Thanks.
Councilmember Mendoza.
I do like the idea that Chris brought up of the welcome wagon. I think it's nice when you get to a new community. I mean, we all see it on TV, right? Like the neighbor that brings the cookies or whatever. So I think that's kind of like what Karen's like, you introduce yourself, and then if you need anything, let me know. I know who to call. I like that. So I do like that aspect. I don't know if we could reincorporate that somehow, that would be great. And I don't know how they would work with city staff to know if someone's new in town. Like, I don't know how you figured that out, but I like that. And then, maybe smaller events in different neighborhoods, because we constantly hear that different areas of town are left out. So making sure that everyone feels like they're part of Brentwood, not just downtown, it's an entire city, not just a few city blocks. So if we could do anything like that, it would be great. I really like the welcome wagon aspect of it, and like basically you're a 24/7 kind of thing without being 24/7.
Councilmember Meyer.
So I would agree about the welcome wagon. I think that's fantastic. And I am one of those neighbors that used to do that. I don't have time anymore. The cookies and muffins and whatever, which I did. But I wrote down a few other things when I was thinking about this. And I do think it would be a good thing to have council liaison. I do think the engagement is huge, however that looks. And I think like we're all doing our best to engage and to get people to come to council meetings and speak up and things like that. And I think it would be really nice if the BNC members were committed to doing the same thing when they talk to people, when they welcome people, when they share at events and all, invite us to attend the events or talk about ways that they can impact local change and speak at council meetings, that kind of thing. I love the parks ideas. I think that's fantastic to do these little small, like kind of almost pop-up events. I think that's really great, especially if they're going to be citywide. I love the house decorating kinds of things and the landscaping. That all works really well. One thing we haven't discussed in a while, and I wonder if there's some way to combine or partner or something with the leadership roundtable that seems to have come up in discussions many times. And I mean, I know that's still happening, and we've been able to incorporate a broader group, if you will, including more now nonprofits, et cetera. But I don't know if there's any thoughts about whether there's a way to incorporate the work to partner with that, or to, like you mentioned, the Youth Commission. Is that a separate thing? Do we have a membership for one crossover to the other? Is there a similar mission in working to represent different businesses and people and sections and portions of the town? And I mean, we haven't had a presentation from the roundtable, but is that something that we should be encouraging? Is that kind of come and tell us what's going on, tell us what you're hearing from the community, tell us what you're seeing from local businesses, that kind of thing. But could it be a similar kind of a mission for BNC?
I think there's some validity to the idea that there could be some cross workings of those two different groups. Absolutely. I don't know how they would merge per se, but definitely could be some partnerships in play.
Councilmember Rarey?
You mentioned doing different things at parks. We have so many parks that are we've got new playground equipment coming in or something happening at the park. And I remember before there was a park commission, and we just had that Brentwood, we just had Bank. When we finally opened up Glory Park, I worked as part of Bank to do a grand opening there. And that helped to launch whenever we opened a new park. There would be a grand opening thing. And I mean, we had band playing, we had somebody there with a ice cream cart, and I think we might have even had snow cones or the person with the balloons, or just all different types of things that were there. Kind of an old-fashioned park opening, grand opening. Might be something that they could work with Park and Rec to do that. They could do the organization. Park and Rec can come out there and rechristen the park, but they would help organize the whole grand opening, and that allows for an event to take place, so that we have targeted parks throughout the city that are being redone. That might be a way to choose some of the parks and then add others to the mix.
One of the things that I would love to see is a representative from all of the HOAs potentially in the community, or even communities, neighborhoods that don't have an HOA. Certainly our senior groups. Maybe open this up, make them aware of it beyond social media. I know it may shock a lot of people, and I'm often shocked when someone says, I don't have social media, I don't have a computer, but there are a significant number of people in our community that don't interact that way often. And it would be nice if we made a way as a city to let them become aware of what the Brentwood Neighborhood Committee is about, what they're doing. We have several different groups. There's a group of the Delta Quilters, for example. They have events around town occasionally. Members of the Historical Society, or the John Marsh group as well. Just people that are involved if they are often made aware that there's opportunity, have someone just reach out to them. They might be wanting to be involved in all of these ideas that would be fantastic to implement to make sure that each area of our community has an opportunity for the families there to interact and create more of a close-knit community, but also be involved in and made aware that there are things going on in other neighborhoods that they might want to go participate in and assist in. Vice Mayor?
Yes. Are we looking at, because it sounded like there's only 3 people currently on the board on that committee. I mean, are we currently looking at maybe recruiting new members to that committee, or is that pretty much where we're going to stay at for now?
So we put it on hold pending this conversation. We didn't want to go out and recruit a whole new set of members if the guidelines were going to change and their purpose was going to be different, because it would be a little bit of a bait and switch if they thought they were coming on to do these events that are currently in the guidelines and then it changes the course. So we paused the recruitment, and then pending this conversation and whatever new guidelines we decide on, then we will recruit at that time under the new guidelines.
Yeah, the reason why I ask, I think this is the right thing to do, Chris, in regards to waiting to see what direction it's all going to go in. So you can be very transparent with the people that, that we recruit. I think it's important when we do put it out there, because I think a lot of the ideas are great, but it also, there's specific people maybe in the community that have the clout and the relationships within different communities to encourage people to be more involved or even hosting these type of events. So, I'm glad that you're waiting to find out what direction to go into, but I also think it's important that we do go out and select other members and put it out there so that hopefully we could have different people that from different portions of the community to come in to support us. A lot of times it's very difficult as a city entity to walk in and want to do events, right, in specific communities because, for whatever reasons, right? And it's always good to have at least 1 or 2 members in those communities to support that. So, yeah, so that's good. I think that's going to be great when we start recruiting to, one, make sure that we're creative on how that recruitment looks and really thinking outside the box, right? So that we hopefully get the right people. So thank you.
Well, is there a list of, say 4 or 5 things that we would like this group to do as marching orders for staff?
I would like to see this committee maybe be more engaged in cultural events, right? I think there's a lot of wonderful, we have a lot of different types of people that live in this community now that, maybe organizing some type of cultural events within different portions of the community or downtown, but really bringing out a lot of the different cultures that are in our community and supporting those events or actually organizing them, putting them together. Was that what you were asking, Mayor? I'm sorry.
Yeah, well, there's been a lot of really excellent recommendations, and once we know that we want them to be a welcome wagon. That's really important and a big component of it. We also know that this would be an ideal opportunity to have them be the liaison for anything that's going on that might affect our community as a whole or individual communities. Finding a point person. And there's different ways to do that. We have CERT qualified, citizen emergency response trained individuals on the team here. And, Councilmember Rarey, at one point, I believe you went through that training.
Well, and that was something I mentioned before is that the bank should also, or BNC should also be CERT trained. I mean, because they are the people, if we went the route, the welcome wagon, the point of contact for people to, who have concerns in the neighborhood, CERT training so that when there is an emergency, there is somebody who is trained that to contact already. I think I think those all are great things, and who may even host some cert trial things, where call people up and let's get you involved and get out there and let's go through our training, because learning it once doesn't mean that you're going to remember it 6 months from now. And then
Councilmember Mendoza.
Yeah, I think we should honor what they want, right? Like, they want the smaller parks. They're the ones doing the work, and they're the ones volunteering. So I think we should totally respect that. And if they want to do smaller neighborhood park things, I say we support them in that. And again, the welcome wagon is something I think that came kind of from them too. So, and I don't know if we should start big. Like, let's start with a few things, and because you're going to get a lot of new people, and then let's see how it goes from there too. And then as they feel like they have the bandwidth to add on, then we can start adding on more. But I would also be careful on how much we give them all at once. I don't know how you feel about that, Chris.
I agree. Yeah. What I was going to suggest, I've made note of quite a few things, and I'll list those off just to make sure that I've heard everything that you've said so far. So something that would be similar, I called Karen's suggestion, or Councilmember Rarey's suggestion, an ambassador program, for lack of a better term. So somebody that can help people navigate the city. Perhaps that includes CERT training, holding emergency trainings or reenactments. So kind of this city ambassador piece, the welcome wagon piece, neighborhood park kind of pop-up events, helping with any kind of outreach that council could need at a certain time, or that city departments might need. Maybe there's a survey that's out. This would be the group that kind of help get the word on the street that we need input. Perhaps partnerships with Park and Rec Commission on park openings, some connection with the Leadership Roundtable, perhaps, potential partnerships with Youth Commission, getting involved with cultural events in different parts of the city, making sure that our outreach and recruitment efforts are widespread and diverse and creative, and then still incorporating perhaps the house decorating contest and maybe expanding on that in some kind of way. So that's what I've written down. Council, I'll ask if I think I've nailed it, but if there's things I forgot, please let me know. I will take a crack at putting this together in a cohesive guideline document. I will discuss it with the 3 current members to get their input, and then I can bring it back to council with their input and a draft document for your review, if that
awesome
sounds good.
Yeah, my concern is just their burnout. Like, I don't want to burn them out, and it is volunteer, so I want them to enjoy what they're doing and not leave.
I agree.
Because they're not enjoying it. Yeah, thank you.
Yep.
Councilmember Meyer.
I think I like the ideas. I think a lot of them flow together. I think the idea of having a pretty, not huge amount of things for people to get overwhelmed by, like Councilmember Mendoza was talking about. I think we need to be careful about that. I also like the idea, as new people come in and the commission or committee, builds, to ask for their input to the new people to see what they think is a good appropriate fit. I love CERT. I don't think this is the best fit for demanding all of the members are certified. I think that's another outreach thing altogether, not a committee that meets on a regular basis or anything outside of what, CERT requirements are. I think it should be an option. I think they could help plan an event, but I don't know that I would say I think they should all be CERT trained and qualified and ready to jump in at a moment's notice for a disaster. I think I want to be CERT trained myself, but I don't think it should be. It doesn't feel like it fits with the rest of it. It feels like it becomes too overwhelming and too much. I do like everything else that we've talked about. I like the idea of recognizing different diversity and culture events. I think that's a fantastic idea. Combining that in with the parks and people across and around town in this broad scale recruitment, I think is fantastic too. Everything else I like. It's just the CERT thing feels like it's a bit too much. To be a part of this, you should be going through this program. I think it more should be something that they help to offer to the rest of the community as an event.
Councilmember Rarey?
I like the cultural events. I don't think they should be in charge of putting on a cultural event. One, because it could really insult a culture by not doing it properly if they don't have someone on their community. So there's so many different things. I mean, there's the Diwali festival that we just had not too long ago. There's the Day of the Dead, Dias de Muerte. And so I think participating and tabling at something and seeing how they can help is one thing. Plus, having to do larger events like that is very time consuming. And that's something they were trying to get away from. So I think that participating in them is a great idea. Running them, I think could be very problematic. Plus then you're looking at budgets, and those cost money. You know, the bigger events, as we know.
So this is a question for Damien. Do we need to vote on this, or is direction to staff adequate for this item?
I believe that Ms. Farrow read a list of what she had heard the council say, and I think but for requiring them to take CERT training and but for having them putting on the cultural events, it seemed that the council agreed with that. It might be helpful to have just a quick motion from the council just confirming that, so then staff has clear direction and they know what the council expects. And then, as Ms. Farrow said, she would work up that list, turn it into something more like you see in the staff report on their guidelines, and bring that to the existing BNC members for their review of their comment, and then come back to the council with that feedback for a further council discussion to make sure that everything was captured what you said, and also it flows in the way that you believe. And as Councilmember Mendoza says, it doesn't put too much of a burden on these new members right out of the gate, because it is a lot of things that you've mentioned, and it could be overwhelming. So long answer to your short question, Mr. Mayor, I would advise just a brief vote, and it would be based on what Ms. Farrow said, but there probably needs to be a little bit of clarity on the CERT training, as well as putting on the cultural events versus being a part of them, being a liaison to them, things of that sort.
Well, maybe leave that up to the three members that are, let them discuss it and decide which direction they want to do.
Certainly could do that as well.
Okay, so do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to move forward Chris Farrow's list to be developed and brought to the three remaining members to discuss and deliberate and make some decisions to bring back to us.
First?
I'll second that.
A second, a roll call vote, please.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
And thank you, Chris. Before we move on to this next item, I do want to mention that Chris and their staff received a recognition from the Contra Costa, I believe it was the Health Services Organization, regarding their appreciation for all of the work that they did in helping assist set up the testing and the vaccinations here. So thank you, Chris, and your staff for doing such an outstanding job. And as always, Chris is the consummate professional when dealing with things. She didn't want to be in front of the camera, but I forced her to, yay. So she finally, she and her staff do outstanding work, and it's greatly appreciated. And now they have received some very well-deserved recognition for their efforts.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. And the plaque will be up at the Brentwood Senior Activity Center if anyone would like to see it.
Wonderful. Thank you for
it.
Thank you. We will move into item E1, request for new future agenda items. Councilmember Rarey.
Yes, I'd like a future agenda item to review the agreement with Shay regarding the vineyards at Marsh Creek and the deadlines that they have. They've already missed a couple deadlines, and they're back to saying, oh, it'll be done in a couple of months. Well, one of the parks was approved in 2017. Another couple, I think, were in 2018. Another couple were in 2019. So we're now looking at, I mean, even at the shortest period, we're looking at 2.5 to 3 years, and you know, upwards of almost 5 years. You know, and it's always a couple months. We'll get to it in a couple of months. So I think we need to discuss it again. And if they do get these permits, unless they actually finish the park by the time frame that's set, that their occupancy permits are held until the park is finished. They can build the houses, they just can't sell them, or they can't occupy them until the park is finished. I think we need to, you know, put their feet to the fire.
Okay, is that
That's it.
clear? Okay.
That's it. Is it clear?
I believe that it was clear and received as the process goes. Are there any other future agenda item requests this time? Okay, thank you. Seeing none. Damien, okay. If there are no further future agenda item requests at this time, we need a motion for adjournment.
So moved. Second.
First and a second. Roll call vote.
Councilmember Mendoza?
Yes.
Councilmember Meyer?
Yes.
Councilmember Rarey?
Aye.
Vice Mayor Rodriguez?
Aye. Sorry about that.
Mayor Bryant?
Aye.
Motion carries unanimous.
Thank you. We are adjourned. Councilmember Meyer, please heal quickly and be well. And thank you, everyone else. Have a great evening. Be safe.
You too, Paul.